Chapter 149. When an emperor was angry, blood would stain thousands of miles. On the first day that Yi Hao became emperor, he immediately started the war. 33. Yi Hao kept all 200,000 troops in the Dragon Prison Lake. Of course, this was the limit of the Dragon Prison Lake. He rode a giant dragon and flew towards Zhao country alone. Now that Yi Hao had completed the Heart of the Strong, the system activated the leveling system. This meant that whether Yi Hao killed people or monsters, he would obtain experience points. As long as he had enough experience points, he could level up immediately. Of course, this had to be done by Yi Hao himself to obtain experience points. As for the resurrection points, they still had to be obtained through the system's missions. As long as Yi Hao's subordinates killed enemies, Yi Hao would obtain soul points. This had not changed at all from before. The price list for summoning generals had also been released. When Yi Hao saw it, he thought that he was already a tycoon with nearly 500,000 soul points. In the end, when he saw the price list, he realized that he was just a beggar. Summoning warriors required 100 soul points. Summoning generals required 1,000 soul points. Summoning Wu Ho required 10,000 soul points. Summoning martial kings required 100,000 soul points. Summoning martial spirits required 500,000 soul points. Summoning martial venerables required 1 million soul points. Summoning Emperor Wu required 5 million soul points. Summoning martial emperors required 10 million soul points. Summoning martial saints required 50 million soul points. Summoning martial gods required 100 million soul points. With his soul points, he could only summon one martial spirit. However, the system had no restrictions now. As long as he had enough soul points and resurrection points, he could summon any level. I want to check the experience system, Yi Hao said to the system. Now that there were too many things, he could check them separately. It was more convenient for Yi Hao. Host, Yi Hao level, Martial General level 6. Fortunately, Yi Hao saw that the experience points were not particularly much and heaved a sigh of relief. Now, only by quickly leveling up and reaching the martial god level could he save his father. At that time, he would be able to see ZMOR. Yi Hao felt a huge amount of pressure, but now that the experience system had been activated, everything was not a problem. Yi Hao rode the giant dragon and stopped in the sky above the imperial capital of Zhao country. The soldiers of Zhao country all raised their heads and looked at the giant dragon in the sky in fear. I wonder which lord has graced the state of Zhao with his presence. The Zhao emperor immediately ran out from his dragon bed. He looked at the giant dragon in the sky and asked cautiously. Yi Hao landed on the ground, and before the emperor of Zhao could say anything, he waved his sleeve, and a squad of soldiers and horses appeared, charging out in all directions. Not good. When the Zhao emperor saw this, he immediately shouted anxiously, "Guards!" But more and more soldiers appeared. A total of 200,000 soldiers filled every corner of the palace. They didn't give the Zhao country a chance to react at all. The Zhao country emperor knelt at Yi Hao's feet. "Your Excellency, please spare my life. I don't know how I've offended you. Sir, I can give you anything you need." The Zhao emperor was completely terrified. There were only 20 to 30,000 imperial guards in his palace. How could they be a match for Yi Hao? They were all enemies. If you want to blame someone, it's because you gave birth to a good daughter. Yi Hao looked at the Zhao country's emperor, who was kneeling at his feet, with disdain. If they hadn't dug their own graves, the Zhao country's emperor would still be his father-in-law, and Zhao Yunhan would be the empress. If they wanted to blame someone, they could only blame themselves for being too greedy. "My daughter, Yunhan." The Zhao country's emperor's expression changed. The first person he thought of was Zhao Yunhan. He begged for mercy. "Your Excellency, how did that little bitch offend you? I'll definitely make her apologize to you. She ran to Yi and isn't in the palace." The Zhao country's emperor thought that Zhao Yunhan had offended Yi Hao. He couldn't help but hate Zhao Yunhan to the bone. His country was destroyed just like that. In front of power, even his most beloved daughter was nothing. It's too late. Yi Hao pulled out his blood-stained dual blades and decided to personally execute the Zhao country's emperor. "I just want to know who you are." The Zhao country's emperor sat on the ground, paralyzed. He looked at the dual blades in Yi Hao's hands and asked in fear, "Fine, I'll let you die knowing who you are." Yi Hao knelt down and told the Zhao country's emperor his name. At the same time, the dual blades mercilessly stabbed into the Zhao country's emperor's stomach. The Zhao country's emperor's face was full of disbelief. He looked at Yi Hao with his eyes wide open. "How could I regret? Ding dong, congratulations on killing Zhao Shihao. You've received 10 experience points. You've received Zhao country's fate." The Zhao country's imperial jade seal disappeared from the table and flew to Yi Hao. Yi Hao didn't understand. It merged with Yi Hao's imperial jade seal. Yi Hao's imperial jade seal changed a little, but the Zhao country's imperial jade seal disappeared. How could this be? Yi Hao looked at the imperial jade seal in his hand in confusion. Yi Hao wasn't surprised that it absorbed Zhao country's fate. After all, Zhao country was destroyed by him. But under normal circumstances, shouldn't the imperial jade seal disappear after the country was destroyed? How could it merge with his imperial jade seal? Forget it. I won't think about it if I don't understand. Yi Hao put the imperial jade seal back into his space. He looked at the soldiers who were almost all dead and said, "Leave some for me. If you don't remove the roots when you cut the grass, it will grow again when the spring breeze blows." Yi Hao didn't leave a single person of Zhao country's royal bloodline behind. Go and gather all the resources. Yi Hao sat on the dragon throne of Zhao country and ordered his soldiers. The entire Yi country was taken down by Yi Hao without much effort. If someone else had done this, they wouldn't have done it even if they were beaten to death. Who could ride a giant dragon and kill their way into the enemy's palace? Who could use a sacred item like the Dragon Prison Lake to carry 200,000 soldiers? Only Yi Hao could do it. Ran Min. Yi Hao looked at the generals in the hall and finally looked at Ran Min here. Ran Min knelt on the ground and accepted the order. "I will destroy all the remaining cities in Zhao country. I will leave some men for you in each city. You will take care of these cities." Yi Hao didn't have the time to manage these cities. He could only leave it to his subordinates. At the same time, pay attention to the recruitment of soldiers. That's not a problem. However, I can't do anything about the citizens. Ran Min said with some difficulty. That's a problem. Yi Hao squinted his eyes and thought. It wasn't a problem for Ran Min to lead the troops in a battle. However, it was a bit difficult for him to manage government affairs. In the end, Yi Hao used the system to summon a few political talents to solve this problem. Yi Hao emptied the entire treasury of Zhao country. He only left some resources for Ran Min to develop. He took the remaining troops and rushed towards the other cities. This time, Yi Hao didn't do what he did in Zhao country. He went up and killed a few hundred people. When he was tired, he released the soldiers. Ding dong, congratulations to the host for reaching level 7 general. After Yi Hao killed a few hundred people, Yi Hao finally leveled up. His experience was now 800. It seems that killing these low-level people doesn't give me much experience. Most of these soldiers were only rank 1 or 2 warriors. The difference between them and Yi Hao is too big. Therefore, I only gained a little experience. However, no matter how small a mosquito's leg was, it was still meat. Yi Hao didn't intend to let these soldiers go. Chapter 150. Stop. At this time, an old man walked out from a restaurant and angrily yelled at Yi Hao. 33? The 9 layers heaven. You really can be found anywhere. Yi Hao glanced at the old man, then at the imposing restaurant behind him. His eyes were filled with disdain. Seeing Yi Hao looking at him, the old man thought that he had intimidated Yi Hao. Kid, I don't care what kind of grudge you have with the Zhao country. This city is under the protection of a 9 layers heaven. Take your subordinates and get out of this city. Old Wu, we can't let him go like this. My subordinates have suffered heavy losses. The mayor of this city said anxiously when he saw that Old Wu was going to stand up for him. Just as Old Wu was about to speak, a voice came from the restaurant. Break one of that kid's shoulders and throw him out. Yes, Old Wu replied respectfully. His hands were like hooks as he charged at Yi Hao with vigor. The old man's status was about the same as Guan Zhendong's, but he was slightly stronger than Guan Zhendong. However, He was only a rank 8 martial general, which was only on par with Yi Hao. You want to cut off my hand? In your dreams. Yi Hao's reaction was very fast. The two blades in his hands were as fast as lightning and slashed at the old man's body. Ding dong, congratulations. You have killed a rank 8 martial general. You have received 80 experience. With a rank 4 spiritual artifact, it was an instant kill. Bang, a black shadow flew out from a 9 layers heaven and stood in front of Yi Hao. Kid, you have been hiding your strength. Very good, take this. Rank 1 Martial King. Yi Hao did not dare to be careless. He immediately released 3 Martial Kings and 3 Martial King Knights from the space. They formed an encirclement and attacked him. Kid, who are you? Min Feihu did not expect that 3 Martial Kings of the same rank as him would suddenly appear. Although he reacted quickly, he still received a few wounds on his back. Seeing that Yi Hao did not say anything, Min Feihu knew that he could not stay here any longer and immediately used his ultimate skill. Hook Spear King Fist. Zhao Fu's fists were as heavy as mountains as they smashed towards the 2 Martial King Knights. The Martial King Knights' expressions fell, and they hurriedly raised their weapons to block. However, their weapons were like thin paper, and they were easily torn apart by Zhao Fu's fists. Zhao Fu's fists slammed into the 2 Martial King Knights' armor, causing them to fly back and cough up blood as they died. Yi Hao did not dare to be careless. He finally understood the importance of talent and martial arts techniques. They were both martial kings, but Min Feihu was able to use martial skills and easily killed 2 of his Martial King Knights. Yi Hao looked at Min Feihu, who was rushing towards him, and immediately released the remaining 7 Martial Kings. There's actually more. Min Feihu originally thought that Yi Hao didn't have a backup plan, so he gave up on the idea of escaping. He wanted to kill Yi Hao in one fell swoop. He didn't expect that Yi Hao would bring out another 7 Martial Kings. By using martial skills, he had already used up more than half of his martial strength. Now that there were 7 more Martial Kings, he felt a dangerous aura. However, it was already impossible for him to escape. The best opportunity to escape earlier was wasted by him. Now that the 8 Martial Kings have already surrounded him, Min Feihu can only bitterly defend. Brat, I'm from the 9th heavens. Let me go, and we'll leave this to our friends. Min Feihu attempted to use the reputation of the 9th heavens to intimidate Yi Hao. As long as he escaped, he would return to take revenge. At the same time, Min Feihu is also extremely alarmed. How could Yi Hao appear here alone? He has so many martial kings under him. Luckily, these people don't know any martial skills, otherwise he would have died long ago. He must return and report this to the Patriarch. Yi Hao coldly watched from the side. He did not pay any attention to Min Feihu. Instead, he was looking for an opportunity. Taking advantage of the fact that Min Feihu is wholeheartedly defending the 8 Martial Kings, Yi Hao seized the opportunity and used butterfly shadow steps to quickly charge at Min Feihu. Min Feihu also felt Yi Hao's aura behind him, but he did not have time to resist. Because of the powerful attacks of the 3 Martial Kings in front of him, he had no choice but to block them. In his eyes, Yi Hao is only a martial general. Can he break through his defense? Short breath. Yi Hao saw Min Feihu looking down on him and sneered in his heart. He used a martial skill to hack at Min Feihu. Reality has proven that looking down on the enemy is a huge mistake. The bloodstained dual blades are rank 4 spirit tools. They are enough to injure a martial king expert. Min Feihu still dared to open his defense. The bloodstained dual blades in Yi Hao's hands easily cut open Min Feihu's body. Ding dong, congratulations to host for killing a rank 1 Martial King enemy. Reward, 1,000 experience. Due to host killing someone of a higher rank, the experience reward is increased by 3 times. Obtain middle yellow rank Halberd King, Fist Martial Skill. Congratulations to host for leveling up. Rank 8 Martial General. Congratulations to host for leveling up. Rank 9 Martial General. Congratulations to host for leveling up. Rank 10 Martial General. Congratulations to host for leveling up. Rank 11 Martial General. Killing a martial king allowed him to instantly level up by 4 levels. Yi Hao was very excited. This was much better than killing those small soldiers. In the end, Yi Hao was dumbfounded. Wasn't the highest rank a martial general could reach was rank 10? Why was he now a rank 11 martial general? Because in every realm, rank 11 is the limit. Now, there are very few people in the 10,000 Kingdoms continent who can break through rank 11. Rank 11 martial general is equivalent to rank 1 Wu Ho. The system immediately explained. That means I can now fight against rank 3 Wu Ho. Yi Hao excitedly thought. He had the innate sacred martial spirit body and could kill people of 2 levels higher. Now, he could kill people of 3 levels higher. Furthermore, with his 3rd level defense and a 4th level spirit artifact, as long as he did not meet a monster of the same level, who could compare to him? Even if it was a 6th level martial lord, he still had the power to fight. This was a power that truly belonged to him. Men, annihilate the 9 heavens completely. Yi Hao did not have a good impression of the 9 heavens at all. He sent people to kill him for no reason. At that time, he made up his mind to eradicate the 9 heavens. Today, he jumped out again and meddled in other people's business. Yi Hao led his men and destroyed 10 cities in Zhao country in one night. At the same time, he also eradicated 5 cities that belonged to the snobs. His speed was so fast that no one could guard against it. They didn't even have the chance to escape. The next day, the surrounding snobs received the news. At this time, Zhao country had completely changed hands. In the headquarters of the 9 heavens, in Jade Tiger City, Li Gang angrily smashed the table in front of him. His old face was red with anger. Who killed Min Feihu? A small duchy actually dares to provoke my 9 heavens. Li Gang was furious. The people he sent to avenge his son didn't return. Although he suspected that it was related to the Mu family, because the time Mu Qingyu went out and returned was almost the same as the time Li Ba went out, he didn't have any evidence. He couldn't do anything to the Mu family. Moreover, he and the Mu family were like fire and water. The Mu family snobs were not smaller than his, so he had no place to vent his anger. However, he couldn't afford to offend the Mu family. Min Feihu was a subordinate he sent to Zhao country. Just now, his subordinate reported that Min Feihu's soul jade had shattered. This meant that Min Feihu was also dead. Min Feihu was a rank 1 martial king, but he actually died in a duchy. Chapter 151. Send someone to investigate and find out who dares to touch my 9th heaven. I'll make him wish he was dead. 33. Li Gang roared. Although the Tianlang dynasty's ruler was the emperor of a kingdom, his strength had reached rank 4 martial spirit. At this moment, he had rushed to the Fire Dragon Empire with more than 20 martial king subordinates. The Tianlang dynasty's ruler used his mind to scan the capital of the Fire Dragon Empire and found no giant dragon. He couldn't help but frown. Thinking of the power of the black-robed Emperor Wu, the Tianlang dynasty's ruler's legs couldn't help but tremble. The Tianlang dynasty's ruler's mount was also a martial spirit dark moon heavenly wolf. The 20 people under him were also riding dark moon heavenly wolves, but their auras were not as strong as the Tianlang dynasty's rulers. Li Hong was in the palace, worried about Yi Hao's expedition when he suddenly received a report from his subordinate. Lord Li, it's not good. More than 20 experts have arrived outside the palace. Who are they? Come with me to take a look. Li Hong stood up in confusion. It couldn't be that those countries had sent people over so quickly, right? That was too fast. Just as Li Hong was about to walk out of the palace, Nangong Wentian's voice came from the sky. Stay in the palace and don't wander around. The enemy is too strong. You can't deal with them. Nangong Wentian's tone was indescribably serious. It meant that the enemy's strength had already made him feel threatened. Nangong Wentian, dressed in white, stood on the city wall and looked at the Tianlang dynasty's ruler. He asked, "Who are you? Why have you come to my Fire Dragon Empire?" The moment Nangong Wentian spoke, he released his aura and instantly shattered the pressure on the Tianlang dynasty's ruler. Feeling the Nangong Wentian's aura, many martial kings and dark moon heavenly wolves stood up and shouted uneasily, "Rank 6 martial spirit." When he heard the Nangong Wentian mention the name Yin Long, the Tianlang dynasty's ruler knew that there was no mistake. Moreover, he wasn't surprised by the Nangong Wentian's strength. After all, it would be strange if a country didn't have a strong person who owned a giant dragon. Where is the person riding the dragon? The Tianlang dynasty monarch knew that the black-robed Emperor Wu would arrive soon, so he asked the Nangong Wentian with the tone of an emperor, "Could it be that they're here for the 18th prince?" How did the 18th prince offend such a powerful person? Nangong Wentian thought to himself. He was also very shocked that Yi Hao had a giant dragon, but he didn't have time to ask. Yi Hao led the soldiers to destroy Zhao, not giving him a chance at all. "No, I have to attack first. Otherwise, I don't have the confidence to kill them all." Nangong Wentian knew that these people did not come with good intentions. These people were here to cause trouble for Yi Hao. He must protect Yi Hao well. Swish! Nangong Wentian unsheathed his sword and took advantage of the fact that the Tianlang dynasty's subordinates were not paying attention to him. He quickly charged towards a few weaker martial kings. Rip! The Nangong Wentian was extremely fast. In an instant, he cut down a man and a wolf, and then he continued attacking. The Tianlang dynasty monarch hadn't expected the Nangong Wentian to suddenly attack. His expression changed, and he roared at his subordinates, courting death. "Kill him for me." At the same time, he also charged at the Nangong Wentian on his Black Knight Heavenly Wolf. Whoa! The Black Knight Heavenly Wolf roared and turned into a black blur. It opened its bloody mouth and bit at the Nangong Wentian. "Scram, beast!" The Nangong Wentian kicked the Tianlang dynasty monarch's mount in the head. The Black Knight Heavenly Wolf retreated a meter in pain and then charged at the Nangong Wentian once more. Wu Ming Flying Sword. The Nangong Wentian roared and used a martial skill. The sword in his hand shot out sword chi in all directions, killing the martial kings and the Black Knight Heavenly Wolf. "I see that your strength is not ordinary. Why don't you join my Tianlang dynasty?" The Tianlang dynasty monarch asked the Nangong Wentian. His heart ached when he saw 4 or 5 of his subordinates being killed in an instant. The Nangong Wentian did not answer the Tianlang dynasty monarch. He only wanted to kill a few people quickly so that he could free up his subordinates to deal with the Tianlang dynasty monarch. "Brat, I gave you face, but you didn't want it." The Tianlang dynasty monarch's expression turned cold when he saw 2 more of his subordinates being killed. "I'll feed you to the wolves." Form the Tianlang killing formation. The Tianlang dynasty monarch saw that 7 or 8 of his subordinates had fallen in a pool of blood. He felt as if a knife was being twisted in his heart. This was the strongest force of the Tianlang dynasty, and now more than half of them had been killed. This made his heart ache. The Tianlang dynasty monarch was anxious. Why hadn't the black-robed Emperor Wu come yet? He was working for the black-robed emperor while the black-robed emperor was playing with his concubines and palace maids in his own palace. The Tianlang dynasty monarch had already cursed the black-robed Emperor Wu thousands of times in his heart. Hearing the Tianlang dynasty monarch's command, the remaining subordinates began to move in unison. They attacked the Nangong Wentian from 4 directions. All kinds of martial skills were thrown at the Nangong Wentian as if they were free. The Tianlang dynasty monarch stood to the side and continuously attacked the Nangong Wentian, causing a lot of damage. This was because the Nangong Wentian was only a rank 8 martial spirit. Although the Tianlang dynasty monarch was only a rank 4 martial spirit, with the cooperation of the Tianlang dynasty monarch, killing people above his level was not a problem. Although the Tianlang dynasty monarch was 4 levels lower than the Nangong Wentian, he still had his own subordinates. In an instant, the advantage that the Nangong Wentian had gained with great difficulty disappeared once again. Wu Ming Flying Sword. The Nangong Wentian had no choice but to use their martial skills again. They formed hundreds of sword chi and spread out in all directions, tearing apart the Tianlang dynasty monarch's body. After fighting for more than half an hour, the Tianlang dynasty monarch's subordinates were finally wiped out. There were still a few dark night sky wolves lying on the ground, seriously injured, waiting for death. The Nangong Wentian had also paid the price of serious injuries. The Tianlang dynasty monarch was in a state of madness. All the subordinates he had brought with him had died. His Tianlang kingdom was now a nameless kingdom. If the black-robed emperor did not give him enough help, his Tianlang kingdom would fall to the bottom. Werewolf unification. The Tianlang dynasty monarch had no choice but to use his famous consummate skill. If this continued, he did not know when the black-robed Emperor Wu would arrive. Damn you! You tricked me into working for you. The Tianlang dynasty monarch's heart was filled with hatred. Go to hell. The Tianlang dynasty monarch and his mount separated. Their eyes flashed with a fierce light as they braced themselves and charged at the Nangong Wentian. One man and one wolf attacked the Nangong Wentian from countless directions. Countless wolf and human figures flashed around the Nangong Wentian, making it impossible to distinguish the direction. Insignificant skill. The Nangong Wentian's eyes quickly discerned the situation, and the long sword in his hand stabbed out. The two men and one wolf were so fast that the onlookers could only see a few black shadows. At the same time, snow fell from the sky. The sound of metal colliding rose and fell, and the howls of the wolves were constantly heard. Li Hong and the others stood on the city wall in shock. Chapter 152. Follow me back to the court. After a night of siege, the Fire Dragon Empire's territory had basically been swept clean. The Fire Dragon Empire's territory had at least doubled. They could also have a certain status in the dukedom. All right, I have 4 gift bags now, but I haven't opened them yet. Yi Hao checked the system space. Suddenly, he saw 4 gift bags in the system space. Ding dong, do you want to open the gift bags? Yes. Ding dong, congratulations on obtaining 100 lollipops. Lollipops are gone? Yi Hao waited for a long time and was stunned. He thought that he would get something good, but in the end, he only got 100 lollipops. Forget it. I'll leave him over. I wonder how that girl is doing. Has she returned home yet? Open another gift bag for me. If it's another lollipop, I'll kill you. Yi Hao threatened the system. Although he knew that it wouldn't work, at least he could comfort his little heart. Ding dong, congratulations on obtaining the 1,000 Illusion Mask. The 1,000 Illusion Mask could transform into anyone's appearance. It was a must-have tool for killing people, acting cool, and escaping. This is not bad. Just nice. I'm about to run out of disguise pills. It's really giving me a pillow when I'm sleepy. Yi Hao looked at the water-like thing in the system space. It should be the 1,000 Illusion Mask. My luck is not bad. Open again for me. Yi Hao continued to say to the system. Ding dong. Congratulations on obtaining 20 sets of level 4 spiritual equipment. I'm going to get rich. Yi Hao thought excitedly. His equipment was only level 4 spiritual equipment. This time, he actually got 20 sets. The combat power of his subordinates would increase by a few levels. Continue. Yi Hao was addicted to opening gift bags. He didn't plan to keep the last gift bag. He continued to speak to the system with excitement and nervousness. Ding dong. Congratulations on obtaining a level 5 spiritual equipment carriage. Congratulations on obtaining the Heavenly Dragon Throne. Can be upgraded. Congratulations on obtaining the Flying Dragon Shrine sealed. Congratulations on obtaining 1 pinnacle pill from Emperor Wu. 1 stick of incense is time. What a lucky break. Yi Hao didn't expect the last gift pack to be so awesome. Yi Hao didn't even care about a 5th-tier spirit tool carriage. Yi Hao checked the Heavenly Dragon Throne. The Heavenly Dragon Throne was made from the bones of an entire heavenly dragon and could be raised to the godly grade. It could increase a nation's fate and increase a sovereign's emperor's aura. It could suppress people and activate a defense. This is practically made for me. Yi Hao looked at the Sky Dragon Throne in the space. The skeleton of a sky dragon was emitting a golden light. The head of the sky dragon looked majestic as it looked ahead, emitting the aura of a king. At first glance, Yi Hao was very fond of it. This heavenly dragon throne was equivalent to a divine artifact. It was also a rare item in the Myriad Kingdom continent. Yi Hao then looked at the flying dragon divine palace. Yi Hao noticed that the aura of the heavenly dragon throne was similar to the aura of the flying dragon divine palace. Yi Hao guessed that the flying dragon divine palace that he couldn't see the end of could also be made from the bones of a flying dragon. At the thought of this, Yi Hao clicked his tongue. The system was really generous. However, he couldn't use the heavenly dragon divine palace at the moment. Even if he could use it, he wouldn't be able to keep it with his current strength. Furthermore, the heavenly dragon divine palace had the ability to fly. Normally, it could also float in the air. There were also some offensive formations and powerful defensive formations. At the same time, there was also a group of 100 puppets. Most of them were martial emperors. The strongest one was even a martial saint. Yi Hao wanted to summon the heavenly dragon divine palace immediately. 100 martial emperor puppets. Just thinking about it made him excited. As for the Emperor Wu Pinnacle Pill, it was a temporary strengthening pill. It could increase a person's strength to that of a rank 1 Emperor Wu. Furthermore, there were no side effects after using it. Bam! Trash. You can't even deal with a martial spirit with so many people. Just as the Tianlang dynasty's ruler was about to be killed, the black-robed Emperor Wu finally appeared. He snorted coldly, and his aura instantly sent the Nangong Wentian flying. He smashed a huge hole in the huge city wall. Greetings! The Tianlang dynasty's ruler let out a sigh of relief. He was already heavily injured, and Hai Tianlang had also fallen to the side. Enough! Where's the dragon? The black-robed Emperor Wu interrupted the Tianlang dynasty's ruler. He scanned the entire imperial capital with his aura, but he couldn't find the dragon's aura. Don't tell me that he ran away. The black-robed old man's eyes flashed with a hint of viciousness as his murderous intent pressed down on the Tianlang dynasty's ruler. The Tianlang dynasty's ruler immediately knelt on the ground and said with a trembling voice, "My lord, please spare my life. I didn't find the dragon's aura either." The black-robed Emperor Wu waved his sleeve, and his martial arts power formed a current that wrapped around the Nangong Wentian. The black-robed old man grabbed the Nangong Wentian by the neck and asked, "If you want to live, then tell me where the dragon's master went." Puffed. The Nangong Wentian struggled to open his eyes and looked at the black-robed Emperor Wu with disdain. He spat out a mouthful of blood on the black-robed Emperor Wu's face. "You want to know? In your dreams. You really have a death wish. Then I will turn you into a puppet." The black-robed Emperor Wu grabbed the Nangong Wentian's head and used a secret technique to turn the Nangong Wentian into a puppet. The Nangong Wentian felt that his soul was being extracted by the black-robed Emperor Wu, making him suffer a fate worse than death. How about it? Are you going to tell me or not? Looking at Nangong Wentian's painful expression, the Emperor in the black cloak went crazy. Nangong Wentian was just a little martial spirit who dared to offend him. He was being refined into a puppet while he was still alive. That pain was unimaginable. The Nangong Wentian broke out in a cold sweat. "What? You want to tell me?" The black-robed Emperor Wu looked as if he had seen through the Nangong Wentian. After all, this kind of pain was worse than death. "My lord, the Nangong Wentian would rather die than submit." The black-robed Emperor Wu flew into a rage. His hand sped up as he kept extracting the Nangong Wentian's soul. "Unforgivable. Today, I will turn you into a puppet and leave you a trace of your soul so that I can torture you every day." At first, the Nangong Wentian still had a clear consciousness, but slowly his eyes became empty. "Lordly, what should we do? General Nangong is dying." The officials looked at the Nangong Wentian with tears in their eyes. At the same time, they were extremely anxious. "If only our lord came back," someone muttered when he thought of how Yi Hao sent the Nangong Wentian flying with a single palm. Only Li Hong and Zhou Quan knew what was going on. They hoped that Yi Hao would not come back because the black-robed Emperor Wu was too powerful. The black-robed Emperor Wu's aura was so oppressive that they could not breathe. Chapter 153. Yi Hao's giant dragon roared in the sky. countless weak magical beasts immediately prostrated themselves on the ground. The giant dragon roared, signaling the return of the king. Our lord is back. We are saved. Lordly, it's really our lord. I wonder if our lord can deal with that black-robed man. Some people were happy for Yi Hao's return, while others were worried. Some spies from other factions were gloating in the crowd. The giant dragon sensed the black-robed Emperor Wu's aura first. It stopped in midair and asked worriedly, "Master, there's an expert from Emperor Wu in the Imperial City. Should we go over?" Why did he stop? Is our lord afraid? Some people said worriedly when they saw the giant dragon stop in midair. So fast. Could it be someone from Mo.'s faction? Has my identity been discovered? Yi Hao didn't need the giant dragon to remind him. He could already feel a strong pressure coming towards him. Yi Hao thought quickly, let's go down. We can't harm the innocent people in this city. Ha! You must be the brat that the old ancestor is looking for. The black-robed Emperor Wu threw down the Nangong, Wentian in his hand, and looked at Yi Hao with disdain. At the same time, he laughed maniacally. General Nangong. Yi Hao saw the Nangong Wentian thrown to the ground. It was covered in blood, and its eyes were empty. Yi Hao's eyes flashed with a strong, murderous intent. He squinted at the black-robed Emperor Wu and asked, "What did you do to him?" He held the weapon in his hand tightly. Yi Hao looked at the black-robed Emperor Wu as if he was looking at a dead man. In his eyes, the black-robed Emperor Wu would definitely die today. It was only because of him that the Nangong Wentian became like this. With the strength of the Nangong Wentian, they could escape in advance when they discovered the enemy. Looking at the corpses of humans and wolves all over the place, they knew that all of this was done by the Nangong Wentian. Other than the Nangong Wentian, who else could deal with so many experts? Although Yi Hao possessed Emperor Wu's pinnacle elixir, he wasn't sure if he could take down the black-robed Emperor Wu. However, for the sake of Nangong Wentian, he had to kill him. You don't need to know. Come with me, trash. After saying that, the black-robed Emperor Wu stretched out his hand and grabbed Yi Hao. When the giant dragon saw that Yi Hao was in danger, it immediately shot dragon rocks at the black-robed Emperor Wu. Your strength has decreased so much, yet you still dare to show off. Do you think I will let you go? Although it was a giant dragon whose realm had decreased, it was still a dragon. The black-robed Emperor Wu was envious. He had no choice but to give up on attacking Yi Hao and turn around to attack the giant dragon. At the same time, he sent out a blast of air with one hand and sent Yi Hao flying. The difference in realms made Yi Hao unable to fight back. If the giant dragon hadn't attracted the black-robed Emperor Wu's attention, Yi Hao would have died. Yi Hao was smashed onto the city wall. Although the damage wasn't as great as the Nangong Wentian's, it was still enough to make him suffer. Yi Hao felt his blood boiling and his organs twisting together. Yi Hao used all of his strength to take out a golden sour elixir and stuffed it into his mouth. However, it could only slowly heal his internal injuries. "My lord!" All of the officials cried out. They couldn't understand how their powerful lord, the powerful young Emperor Long Yan, could be sent flying with just a simple attack. How could this be? Shouldn't he be very powerful? Could it be that this was all an illusion? Zhao Yunhan hid in a corner and looked at Yi Hao, who was lying on the ground. She couldn't understand what had happened. Emperor Wu's realm is indeed powerful. The king of Tianlang looked at the black-robed Emperor Wu enviously. If he was that powerful, then he wouldn't have to listen to the black-robed man's orders. "Kid, I'll catch you first." The king of Tianlang looked at Yi Hao as if he was looking at prey. He walked toward Yi Hao with contempt. He couldn't understand why the black-robed Emperor Wu would want to catch this piece of trash. Roar! The giant dragon used its tail to attack the black-robed Emperor Wu. However, the black-robed Emperor Wu's movements were extremely fast. He easily dodged the giant dragon's ferocious attack and punched the giant dragon's abdomen. The giant dragon roared in pain and attacked the black-robed Emperor Wu again. "Kid, I'm going to kill you." The giant dragon went completely crazy. When had he ever been humiliated like this? Of course, Yi Hao was an exception. When he was at his peak, Emperor Wu's realm wasn't even enough to fill the gaps between his teeth. When he saw him, Emperor Wu had to obediently kneel and beg for mercy. Now, a mere rank 8 Emperor Wu dared to bully him. More importantly, Yi Hao was injured. He couldn't take it anymore. He relied on a strong defense and attacked the black-robed Emperor Wu fiercely. Evil creature, how dare you be so arrogant? The black-robed Emperor Wu couldn't do anything about the giant dragon's desperate attacks. He could only retreat and feel depressed. How dare you call me your grandpa dragon? I'm going to eat you. The giant dragon's claw was like a small mountain as it slammed toward the black-robed Emperor Wu. Even the black-robed Emperor Wu wouldn't feel good if he was hit. Soul-devouring palm. The black-robed Emperor Wu didn't hide his aura anymore. If he didn't use his dark martial arts, he wouldn't be able to take down the giant dragon in a short time. The sky was filled with demonic aura. Everyone in the capital city felt their hair stand on end. I was wondering why you didn't use your martial arts. So you are from the demonic sect. The giant dragon sensed the powerful martial arts and hurriedly dodged. The demonic sect cultivation method was too cruel. Basically, they had to suck the blood essence of martial artists to cultivate. Therefore, the demonic sect wasn't well received by the people. Although the giant dragon dodged in time, he was still hit by the soul-devouring palm and was sent flying with serious injuries. Little dragon. Yi Hao saw the giant dragon being sent flying. He immediately took out Emperor Wu's pinnacle elixir and ate it. Old thing, I'm going to kill you. Yi Hao stood up and picked up his blood-stained dual blades. His eyes were filled with a strong, killing intent. Yi Hao sensed the powerful energy in his body. He was filled with desire. So this is Emperor Wu's pinnacle strength. Awesome. Yi Hao sensed the energy in his body that was thousands of times stronger. He was extremely happy. At the same time, a thought appeared in Yi Hao's mind. Become stronger. Become stronger. Become stronger. Only by becoming stronger could he protect his family and subordinates. Only then would he have the hope of bringing chaos to the world. If he didn't have this elixir today, the Nangong Wentian would have died for him. The Fire Dragon Empire would have been destroyed, and Little Dragon would have died. He would have been at their mercy. Only by standing at the top of the world would he have the qualifications to bring chaos to the world. How did you? The Tianlang dynasty's ruler looked at Yi Hao in disbelief. Sensing the energy on Yi Hao that was similar to the black-robed Emperor Wu's, his legs couldn't help but tremble. Run. He didn't have time to think. The Tianlang dynasty's ruler wanted to run. Try to run. Yi Hao's figure flashed and blocked the Tianlang dynasty's ruler. Chapter 154. Our Lord has exploded. Feeling Yi Hao's powerful strength, which instantly shattered the pressure that the black-robed Emperor Wu left on them, everyone felt their bodies lighten and shouted excitedly. The people who were already in despair looked at Yi Hao's flying figure excitedly again. How did he suddenly become stronger? Zhao Yunhan did not see Yi Hao take the pill, and from what she knew, there was no such powerful pill. To be able to raise one's level, even if there was harm to one's body, it was still unimaginable. At this moment, Zhao Yunhan was still thinking of getting benefits from Yi Hao, but she did not know that her country had already been destroyed by Yi Hao. No, spare me. The Tianlang dynasty's king ran for his life. Originally, he could cover a distance of a few hundred meters in the blink of an eye, but now it was tens of thousands of miles away. Seeing Yi Hao chasing after him, he shook his head in panic. He regretted it now. He hated himself for joining in the fun. He only knew fear when death was near. The black-robed Emperor Wu felt Yi Hao's powerful aura and stopped attacking the giant dragon. He stood in place and looked at Yi Hao with a puzzled expression. He clearly felt that Yi Hao's strength was only at the martial general realm. How did he suddenly become as strong as him? Could it be that this kid was hiding his strength? That was too scary. How old was this kid? No wonder the sect leader said to inform him immediately when he found someone and not to act on his own. The black-robed Emperor Wu wanted to retreat, but he was unwilling. This kid had the heavenly Yin spirit. If he could get it. Seeing that its master was in danger, Dark Sky Wolf immediately stood in front of the Tianlang dynasty's king. Evil beast, die! Yi Hao looked at Dark Sky Wolf with contempt. His blood-stained dual blades easily cut Dark Sky Wolf into two and smashed into the city wall. Ding dong! Congratulations on killing a level 4 martial spirit magical beast. Received 40,000 experience points, 100,000 soul points. Received Dark Sky Wolf pet egg. Ding dong! Congratulations on leveling up. Current level, Wu Ho 1. Ding dong! Congratulations to the host for leveling up. The host is now Wu Ho rank 2. Yi Hao didn't care about his level up. He chased after the Tianlang dynasty's emperor and punched him. His powerful martial power instantly penetrated the Tianlang dynasty's emperor's body. Blood and flesh splattered everywhere. The Tianlang dynasty's emperor didn't even have the chance to scream before he died. I don't care anymore. My life is more important. The black-robed Emperor Wu slowly retreated when he saw the power that Yi Hao had unleashed. Ding dong! Congratulations to the host for killing a martial artist of the 4th level of the martial spirit realm. You have gained 400 million experience points, 100,000 soul points, and 1/10 of the fate of the heavenly wolf, 10,000 kingdoms. Ding dong! Congratulations to the host for leveling up. The host is currently Wu Ho rank 3. Ding dong! Congratulations to the host for leveling up. The host is currently Wu Ho rank 4. What surprised Yi Hao was that he had leveled up by another 2 levels, and after obtaining the Celestial Wolf Kingdom's fate, Yi Hao did not feel anything different. There was a mysterious emperor list in the 10,000 Kingdoms continent. Within the dukedom list, the Fire Dragon Empire had instantly charged into the top 100, which surprised many people. Many emperors even suspected that their eyes were playing tricks on them. On the emperor list, only those who possessed the Imperial Jade Seal could check their country's ranking by sending their consciousness into the Imperial Jade Seal through the Imperial Jade Seal. As for the emperor list, it only cared about the country's luck. It relied on the country's luck to rank and had nothing to do with the country's strength. However, it was wrong to say that it had nothing to do with it. After all, if a country was not strong, how could its fate be strong? In the 10,000 Kingdoms continent, there were hundreds of thousands of dukedoms. To be able to enter the top 10,000 would make many countries proud. To be able to enter the top 3,000, they were all famous on the list. Many dukedoms did not dare to provoke them. To enter the top 1,000, there must be a powerful force supporting them. The countries that entered the top 100 were basically able to catch up with the marquee kingdoms. Those that entered the top 10 would definitely receive the attention of powerful forces and be taken in as a vassal state. On the 10,000 Kingdoms continent, the top 1,000 would at least have a spirit kingdom as a backer. If they were taken in as a vassal state by an empire, their status would naturally skyrocket. How powerful was the Sky Wolf Kingdom? It had at least 10 vassal states under its command. Each state had at least 10 vassal states. After Yi Hao killed the Sky Wolf King, he instantly obtained 1/10 of the Sky Wolf Kingdom's fate. It would be strange if he did not rush into the top 100. The stronger a country's fate, the more martial artists and geniuses there would be. Therefore, in the 10,000 Kingdoms continent, the fate of a country was exceptionally precious. In the 10,000 Kingdoms continent, there would be a written test for the promotion of a country every 3 years. Powerful countries would have the right to make their own decisions. As for weak countries, they would be divided by the strong. The higher the country's ranking, the more resources they would receive. Promotion to the country's rank would determine whether or not a country could be promoted and whether or not they could find a powerful backer. Old thing, do you think you can escape? Seeing that the black-robed Emperor Wu wanted to escape, Yi Hao immediately chased after him. How can your speed be so fast? The black-robed Emperor Wu looked at Yi Hao behind him in shock. How could he know that Yi Hao was an existence that could kill enemies above his level? If not for the fact that he was worried that the black-robed Emperor Wu had a backup plan, Yi Hao would have already rushed forward. At this level, Yi Hao's martial arts were almost useless. However, Yi Hao still used the 72 deadly fists to rush forward. If he did not rush forward, his elixir would run out and he would be finished. Yi Hao pounced on the black-robed Emperor Wu and pressed him to the ground. His fists rained down on the black-robed Emperor Wu as if they were free. The black-robed Emperor Wu's strength was only 2 levels lower than Yi Hao. Moreover, Yi Hao did not have any powerful martial arts techniques. If the black-robed Emperor Wu used martial arts techniques, it would be hard to say who would win. Who would have thought that Yi Hao would use such a shameless fighting style? This was simply a fighting style used by ordinary people and hooligans. We are Emperor Wu. Emperor Wu, do you understand? We are existences that many martial artists look up to. How can you fight like this without any dignity? The black-robed Emperor Wu wanted to cry, but had no tears as he was pressed down by Yi Hao. It was almost impossible for him to resist. Moreover, he could not use any martial arts techniques. He could only silently endure Yi Hao's abuse. Biggin, you want to die? Why don't you let go of me? Let's fight fair and square. After a while, the black-robed Emperor Wu had already suffered tens of thousands of punches. The black robe on his head had already been smashed. His face was swollen like a pig's head. All of his teeth were knocked out by Yi Hao as he spoke in pain. Speak. What did you do to General Nangong? Yi Hao was not stupid. He did not expect that he would make a fool of himself. He had completely suppressed the black-robed Emperor Wu and prevented him from using any martial arts techniques. If that was the case, the black-robed Emperor Wu would still be at his mercy. The only thing he was afraid of was that his martial arts techniques were not as powerful as the black-robed Emperor Wu's. If he let go of the black-robed Emperor Wu, then he would be the unlucky one. I used the soul-devouring technique on him. Right now, he's like a puppet. Now his soul is in a mess. He can only recover if he finds the Heavenly Spirit Saint pill. You are from ZMO, Er's family. Who is ZMO, The black-robed Emperor Wu was stunned. Yi Hao frowned slightly and attacked the black-robed Emperor Wu again. You're still not telling the truth. Chapter 155. In the black-robed Emperor Wu's impression, he didn't know who ZMO was. Moreover, in the entire Wanlan continent, there was no one with the surname Z, unless the black-robed Emperor Wu swallowed his saliva. He didn't even dare to think about that existence, let alone talk about it, because it was an existence that even the old ancestor couldn't afford to offend. However, he felt that it was impossible. How could that existence have anything to do with Yi Hao? Tell me, where can I get the Heavenly Spirit Saint pill? Yi Hao asked while panting after throwing a few thousand punches. Then you have to go to the Alchemy Nation or the Alchemy Sect to find it. After all, it's a saint pill. Only a saint-level alchemist can refine it. The black-robed Emperor Wu looked at Yi Hao with disdain. Is it worth it to find the Heavenly Spirit Saint pill for a martial spirit trash? Yi Hao didn't say anything and hit Emperor Wu again. Who are you? Yi Hao hit him for a long time. It seemed that this black-robed Emperor Wu really didn't know ZMO. Feeling the powerful dark aura on his body, Yi Hao guessed that he must be related to the heavenly Yin spirit. If you let me go, I'll tell you. The black-robed Emperor Wu wasn't stupid enough to tell Yi Hao his identity so quickly. He had already seen the murderous intent in Yi Hao's eyes. If he wanted to live, he could only exchange his identity for it. You have to know that the power behind me is not something you can afford to offend. Not something you can afford to offend? Do you think I'm easy to offend? It was impossible for him to let go of the black-robed Emperor Wu. Yi Hao could only hope to break the black-robed Emperor Wu's heart. He wanted to know what kind of power was behind the black-robed Emperor Wu and why they targeted him. The black-robed Emperor Wu couldn't refute Yi Hao's words. After thinking secretly, he looked at Yi Hao suspiciously. If I tell you the truth, will you really let me go? If you keep talking nonsense, I'll kill you right now. Yi Hao held the blood-stained dual blades and pressed them against the black-robed Emperor Wu's neck. Don't, I'll tell you. I'm from the Dark Soul sect. Our sect's patriarch is very powerful. He sent me to kill you because of your giant dragon. The black-robed Emperor Wu glanced at the heavily injured dragon and did not tell the truth. Instead, he mentioned the name of another faction. Nonsense. Yi Hao slashed the black-robed Emperor Wu's neck. Very few people knew about the giant dragon, so it was obvious that the black-robed Emperor Wu was lying. Ding dong. Congratulations on killing Emperor Wu, a powerhouse of the Eighth Order. You have gained 800,000 experience points, 1,500,000 soul points, a Sixth Order spiritual weapon, a Sixth Order blood replenishing pill, and a Holy Blood Demon Cult's Law Enforcement Medallion. Ding dong. Congratulations to the host for leveling up. The host is now Wu Ho rank 5. Ding dong. Congratulations to the host for leveling up. The host is currently at first level Martial King. This feels great. Yi Hao shouted excitedly. Killing a powerhouse of the Emperor, Wu instantly increased his level by 13. It was indeed great to kill someone of a higher level. Yi Hao finally understood why the system kept telling him to complete the heart of the strong mission. It was because the leveling up system was too powerful. From yesterday until now, he had gone from 6th Order Martial General to a 1st Order Martial King. He had increased his level by 22. Who else in the 10,000 Kingdoms continent could do this? Help me take care of Master Nangong. I'll be back soon. Yi Hao took out 2 pills from the dropped pills and threw them to the giant dragon and Li Hong. Li Hong quickly took the pills and gave them to the Nangong Wentian. As for Yi Hao, because of the effectiveness of the Emperor Wu's pills, there was still half an incense stick's worth of time left. Yi Hao was reluctant to waste it. Yi Hao's speed was like a bolt of lightning. In the blink of an eye, he appeared above the Qian Kingdom's palace. The Qian country was indeed a marquee-ranked country. Just the imperial palace alone was larger than the capital city of the Yi country. Yi Hao glanced over, and to his surprise, there was actually a simple and unadorned formation in the Qian country's imperial palace. It seemed that it was this formation that allowed the Qian kingdom to stand for thousands of years. The emperor of the Qian kingdom looked at Yi Hao, who was floating in the air. He panicked and quickly ordered his men, open the formation. Boom! As the formation was opened, a thin layer of light covered the Qian kingdom's palace. Don't underestimate this light screen. Originally, this level 3 formation could only withstand the attacks of Martial King experts. After several generations of improvements, even ordinary martial spirits would have to return in defeat if they were to come. Seeing the formation being opened, everyone was relieved. The emperor of the Qian kingdom even had a smug look on his face. It seemed that he was very familiar with the formation. Yi Hao looked at the emperor of the Zhao kingdom. He shook his head with a smile and struck at the formation with his palm. Yi Hao's palm strike was very ordinary. When it landed on the formation, it was like a stone cow hitting the sea. It did not cause any ripples. Ha! Kid, you're not strong enough. When the emperor of the Qian kingdom saw Yi Hao strike, he was also very afraid. But when he saw Yi Hao's casual palm strike, he could not help but laugh again. Ha ha ha! The emperor of the Qian kingdom laughed, and the soldiers laughed as well. Crack! Suddenly, there was the sound of a magic crystal shattering. The formation that did not change just now instantly collapsed. How is this possible? The smile on the emperor of the Qian kingdom's face instantly froze. It was as if he had eaten something that he should not have. The Qian kingdom is gone, and Yen Long took its place. Yi Hao said softly, but his voice was filled with the power of martial arts, and it spread to the ears of all the citizens of the Qian kingdom. No one could hear any emotion from his tone, but it suppressed everyone's mind. Many people could not hold on and instantly knelt on the ground. Yi Hao's sleeves moved slightly, and a palm strike fell from the sky toward the emperor of the Qian kingdom. It's this again. The emperor of the Qian kingdom did not dare to underestimate this palm strike. Just now, Yi Hao's palm strike had instantly destroyed a level 3 formation. He immediately wanted to dodge, but he felt that he was locked in place. He could not move at all. He could only watch as the palm strike landed on his body. Bang! A huge force drilled into the emperor of the Qian kingdom's body, and the emperor of the Qian kingdom was blasted into meat paste. And where he was standing, there was a huge pit that was dozens of meters deep. Even the hard bluestone floor had a huge pit that was dozens of meters deep because of this light palm strike. The most powerful person of the Qian kingdom, the emperor, had been turned into a pile of meat paste. Many generals began to tremble. Today, I will only destroy the royal family of the Qian kingdom. As for the rest, if they submit to Yanlong, I can spare their lives. Yi Hao's spiritual sense covered the entire royal palace of the Qian kingdom. He kept on using examine, and then dozens of forces burst out from his body. After penetrating through the thick walls, the dozens of princes were all hit in the head by this powerful force. The remaining forces killed some of the more powerful ones. These powerful ones were all generals. Leaving them alive would be troublesome. He might as well get rid of them since he did not lack generals. We are willing to submit. Please spare our lives, Lord. Lord, please spare our lives. We are willing to submit to Yanlong. Some of the soldiers who were still hesitating immediately threw away their weapons and knelt on the ground and begged for mercy when they saw that their leaders and the royal family had all been killed. System, how many soul points do I have now? Yi Hao asked the system. 2,503,215 points. The system immediately reported the number to Yi Hao. Chapter 156. With so many soul points, he could either summon soldiers or experts. 9 Little Shuop net. Yi Hao did not lack soldiers. As long as he had money and food, he could recruit as many soldiers as he wanted. The main thing was that he lacked experts. The strongest under his command was Jian Wei, who had reached the martial spirit realm, and now he was in Yanhuang City. The martial spirits of the 10,000 Kingdoms continent were only mid-tier. Jian Wei alone was not enough. Now Yi Hao was considering whether to use the soul points to raise the strength of the current general or to summon a new general. Raising a general directly would definitely raise the most talented person. Then he would have to choose from Zilong and the others. And if he chose a general, he would have to bear the risk. After the system's improvements, he might summon a general with ordinary talent. If that happened, he would lose out greatly. First, help me summon a martial supreme. Yi Hao still intended to summon a general. After all, to raise the strength of a general, he had to be fair. If he only raised the strength of one person, it would inevitably cause discord among the generals. Of course, these generals would not betray him. But if there were conflicts among them, it would not be good for future development. To be ruthless to the enemy, but to be fair to oneself. Yi Hao did not want to break this principle. A martial supreme was above a martial spirit, and was the strongest person that Yi Hao could summon at present. Just summon them for me. You don't have to call me one by one. Yi Hao could not stand the torture. He would summon whoever he wanted. After all, it was decided by the system, and he could not change it. Ding dong. Congratulations to the host for obtaining an absolute martial general, Guan Yu. Who? Guan Yu? My luck is off the charts. Yi Hao was overjoyed. This is great. I finally summoned an absolute martial general. Come out, my Guan Yu. After Yi Hao spoke, a muscular man in green appeared before him. His face was flushed, and his long beard swayed without wind. He held a green dragon crescent blade in his hand. Yin Chang greets my lord. Guan Yu hurriedly bowed. Yin Zhang, you don't have to be so courteous. I'll leave the Qian kingdom to you in the future. You must train a group of elite soldiers for me. Yi Hao instructed Guan Yu. With Guan Yu's strength, ruling over a marquise was like using a sledgehammer to crack a nut. However, only by handing it over to Guan Yu could he be at ease. Yi Hao left 10,000 men and horses for Guan Yu to use, then immediately returned to Yanlong. Along the way, he destroyed a few more principalities. The Fire Dragon Empire's fate once again rose by leaps and bounds, instantly breaking into the top 50 of the dukedom rankings and breaking the record of the 10,000 Kingdoms continent. This caused quite a stir, and many people were shocked. A kingdom that hadn't even entered the top 10,000 had refreshed the dukedom rankings twice in a single day. The first time it had entered the top 100, they had thought that it would stop for a while. After all, it was incredibly difficult to advance in the top 100. The effort they put in was countless times more than before. How could there be someone like Yanlong Gua who had already rushed into the top 50 in less than half an hour? In the top 100 Fiend Spirit Kingdom, the Emperor was holding an emergency meeting. Greetings, Your Majesty. A group of martial spirit realm experts knelt on the ground and saluted. The Fiend Spirit Emperor was a level 1 martial honorable. The entire Fiend Spirit Kingdom was founded by him, and his prestige was self-evident. Everyone looked at the Fiend Spirit Emperor with fear in their eyes. "Rise, all of you. You must have received the news of the dukedom rankings today." The Fiend Demon Emperor's every move was filled with an unparalleled majesty, mixed with a thick murderous intent. "Your Majesty, are you talking about the Fire Dragon Empire that broke the record and suddenly rose to the top 100? A level 7 martial spirit realm middle-aged man stood out and said, "What? From the top 10,000 to the top 100? Lord Zhong can't be joking, can he? Could there be another genius in the dukedom?" Many people who had not received the news yet asked in shock. There was no other way to increase a country's fortune other than through war and plunder. For example, the Fiend Spirit Kingdom was a subsidiary of an empire. However, the empire would only give them some resources and would not openly help them. If the Fiend Spirit Kingdom wanted to rise in the rankings, there was no other way except to devour countries of the same rank as them. Devouring countries weaker than them was a taboo, because subduing them would increase their own fortune. If they blindly destroyed countries that were weaker than them, it might backfire. Let the lower-ranked countries fall into the arms of the enemy. For example, although the Fiend Spirit Kingdom had broken through to the top 100 of the dukedom rankings, if they wanted to compare with the Empire of Martial Spirits, they would be at the bottom. Dukedoms were the lowest-ranked countries, but it was also the hardest to rise in the dukedom rankings. With hundreds of thousands of dukedoms, it was extremely difficult to rise in the rankings. The Fiend Demon Kingdom was able to achieve its current status because it was ranked within the top 1,000 in the dukedom rankings. It was also because of this that they were valued by an empire that they were able to achieve their current status as the Spirit Kingdom. Many geniuses of countries were discovered through the dukedom rankings. Even the legendary 1,000 emperors of the Mountain of Corpses relied on their own strength to raise their country to the top 10. After receiving the help of a large faction, they soared. All the signs pointed to the fact that the Flame Dragon Empire had great potential. Just as the ministers were discussing in shock, the Fiend Spirit Emperor looked at the dukedom rankings. He was stunned when he saw the Fire Dragon Empire's name rise all the way to the top 50. "Your Majesty, what's wrong? Could it be that the Fire Dragon Empire has fallen out of the top 100? Seeing the Emperor's shocked expression, the ministers stopped discussing and asked, "No, the Fire Dragon Empire has reached the 49th rank. The Fiend Spirit Emperor said with a strange expression. "What?" The entire imperial court was in an uproar again because they knew that the Fiend Spirit Emperor had no reason to lie to them. "Your Majesty, there's a message from the Sound Transmission Pavilion." Just as the ministers were discussing, a messenger from the Sound Transmission Pavilion came in to report. The Sound Transmission Pavilion in the 10,000 Kingdoms continent was a small spell formation used to transmit information. Only countries above kingdoms could build sound transmission pavilions. Every time it was used, it was extremely expensive. Unless there was an emergency, it wouldn't be used. "Speak." The Fiend Spirit Emperor put down the Imperial Jade Seal in his hand and ordered sternly. "The Fire Emperor has decreed that we must conquer the Fire Dragon Empire before the other countries." The messenger knelt on the ground and said, "How is that possible? The Fire Emperor has decreed that a small dukedom has attracted the attention of the empire? Is that a normal dukedom? That's an existence that refreshed the dukedom rankings twice." "That's right. Don't forget, when our country was in the dukedom rankings, we reached the top 1,000. That was enough for us to be proud of." Chapter 157. Your Majesty, what should we do? Seeing the Fiend Demon Emperor frown, one of his confidants asked cautiously. If not for the Fire Emperor's decree, the Fiend Demon Emperor would definitely have taken action and taken over the Fire Dragon Empire. But now that the Fire Emperor had given this decree, he hesitated. If the Fire Dragon Empire was valued and nurtured by the Fire Emperor, then his position would be threatened. If he could take over Yanlong and nurture him, he would be a great help to him. Although both were taking over the Fire Dragon Empire, the difference between the two was huge. Zheng Dong, the fiend demon emperor, thought for a while, then looked at his confidant. Yes, your majesty. Zheng Dong hurriedly stood up. He knew that the fiend demon emperor had called for him, which meant that there was something private he wanted him to do. Go to the Fire Dragon Empire and pass the Fire Emperor's decree to them. Come to my palace later. The fiend demon emperor said to Zheng Dong. Zheng Dong immediately replied with an understanding look. My lord, you're back. Yi Hao rushed back to the palace at the last minute. The officials all stood up and bowed. How is General Nangong? Yi Hao asked with concern. Li Hong looked sad. My lord, General Nangong's injuries have completely healed, but there's a problem with her mental state. She's been lying in bed for a long time now. Heavenly Spirit Pill. It seems that I have to leave again. General Nangong risked her life to protect Yanlong. I can't just sit by and watch. Yi Hao sat on the Heavenly Dragon throne, deep in thought. But the Heavenly Spirit Pill was extremely precious. Where could he find one? Yi Hao thought back to the black-robed Emperor Wu's words. If you can't find a Heavenly Spirit Pill, learn how to make it yourself. If you work hard, I don't believe that you can't make a Heavenly Spirit Pill. Yi Hao made up his mind. After leaving Yanlong, he would find a big alchemy sect. Originally, Yi Hao wanted to use his reputation points to exchange for it, but looking at the expensive price, the reputation points he had accumulated now were not even a fraction of the price of a divine elixir pill. It was absolutely impossible to rely on reputation points. Sir Li, where's the closest alchemy sect to the Fire Dragon Empire? Yi Hao didn't know where to find an alchemy sect, so he could only ask Li Hong. Li Hong had a difficult expression on his face. Lord, this subject doesn't know. I've been staying in Yi all this while and have no idea about the outside world. Yi Hao shook his head and sighed. No matter what, he had to cure the Nangong Wentian. Moreover, he also needed to level up. Otherwise, how could he save his father and find the Embark? 3 days later, just as Yi Hao was about to leave, Zheng Dong suddenly arrived. Yi Hao was planning the future development of the Fire Dragon Empire. When he heard the report from his subordinate, he quickly asked, Who is this Zheng Dong? The person who came said that he is an envoy from the Fiend Demon Spirit Kingdom. He came with the decree of the Fire Empire and wants to rope in our Fire Dragon Empire. The little eunuch quickly replied. Li Hongzhou, what do you think? Yi Hao was a little surprised. How did he attract the attention of the Fire Dragon Empire? They even sent someone to rope him in. Wasn't this making a mountain out of a molehill? Li Hong and Zhou looked at each other and did as they were told. It was naturally a good thing that the Fire Dragon Empire was valued by the Fire Dragon Empire. Back then, Zhao country received a little help from the Qian Ho country and almost destroyed Yi country. Moreover, the Fire Dragon Empire was an existence that was far beyond their reach. However, Yi Hao himself was strong and shouldn't be the kind of master who was willing to submit to others. They also didn't know what to say. After all, a Fire Dragon Empire wasn't something that Emperor Wu could contend against. Just say it, Yi Hao said with a smile. Li Hong and Zhou wiped off their cold sweat and said, In our opinion, we naturally agree to rope them in because this will only benefit us. If we anger them, we won't have a good time. So you're saying that I'm easy to provoke? Yi Hao asked with a smile. Li Hong and Zhou's heads were filled with black lines. You're only 14 years old, and you're already able to kill an expert like Emperor Wu. A year ago, you were still a fool. A year later, you came back riding a giant dragon and even killed an expert like Emperor Wu. You even destroyed Zhao and Qian Ho. This was something that they didn't even dare to think about in the past. However, this youth in front of them had done it. He clearly knew that there was a strong enemy coming to deal with Yi country, but he carefully changed his identity and still controlled Yi country. He even made the enemy think that he was dead. If they had to choose, they would rather offend the Fire Dragon Empire than Yi Hao. That was because Yi Hao was too monstrous. Then, Lord, do you mean to refuse? Li Hong and Zhou Yu felt that their hearts were about to jump out of their throats. If a duchy rejected the Fire Dragon Empire's invitation, it was undoubtedly a slap to the Fire Dragon Empire's face. No Fire Dragon Empire would tolerate that. It was like a child slapping an adult's face. The adult would definitely teach the child a lesson. At this moment, the Fire Dragon Empire was that giant. As for the Fire Dragon Empire, Yi Hao was the only one who was stronger. This was because no one knew that Yi Hao had taken a pill. The Fire Dragon Empire was just a newborn baby. They were only slightly stronger than the baby. However, if the giant attacked, would the baby still have a chance to survive? At that time, only Yi Hao might be able to escape. However, the entire Fire Dragon Empire would be finished. The two of them were guessing if Yi Hao had any other trump cards. What I'm curious about is why they want to rope us in. There are so many duchies in the myriad kingdom continent. Yi Hao voiced out his doubts. He still didn't know about the empire rankings. He still didn't know that he had once again caused an uproar in the myriad kingdom continent. The first time was when his innate sacred martial spirit body caused the myriad kingdom continent's heaven and earth phenomenon. It attracted all the old monsters of the martial saint realm and sent people to search for him. This time, although it wasn't as big as the previous time, the name of the Fire Dragon Empire still caused many people to talk about it. To refresh the duchy rankings twice in a day, it would definitely be recorded in the history of the myriad kingdom continent. It would definitely be the object of envy of every duchy. Other generations might not even be able to raise their country's ranking. If they could raise their country's ranking by 1 or 2 places, it would be a celebration for the entire country. How could they be like him, who didn't even know what the duchy rankings was? And to raise the Fire Dragon Empire's ranking to the top 50 in a day. If those duchy emperors who only managed to raise 1 or 2 places in their lifetime knew about it, they might die from anger. This subordinate doesn't know either. Li Hong and Zhou Yu didn't think that deeply. Perhaps they had already forgotten about the duchy rankings. If the other party's attitude is good, then agree to their roping. Yi Hao didn't think too much about it, because he was about to leave the Fire Dragon Empire. Chapter 158. Zheng Dong sat calmly in the meeting room. In fact, he was already very dissatisfied. A small duchy had made him wait for so long. Even the emperor of a kingdom wouldn't dare to make him wait for so long. Although he was dissatisfied, Zheng Dong didn't show it. He wanted to see if the emperor of this duchy knew what he was doing. If he could give him something that he was satisfied with, he would pretend that nothing had happened. He would try his best to put in a good word for Yi Hao in front of the fiend demon emperor. Otherwise, Zheng Dong sneered. His Majesty has arrived. A eunuch outside shouted at the top of his lungs. What arrogance! Zheng Dong's eyes flashed with dissatisfaction, but he still had a smile on his face. May I know why Lord Zheng is here? Yi Hao was wearing a white robe with a giant python embroidered on it. This was the standard attire for the ruler of a duchy in the 10,000 Kingdoms continent. The golden python embroidered on the robe corresponded to the giant python on the imperial seal. If Yi Hao's robe was embroidered with a flood dragon or a golden dragon, but he didn't have the corresponding strength, he would be destroyed by a powerful country. No one could say anything about it. So young, Zheng Dong looked at Yi Hao's clothes and knew that Yi Hao was the ruler of this Yanlong. But what surprised him was that the person who refreshed the duchy list twice a day was a young man who wasn't even 20 years old. This was because Yi Hao had disguised himself and deliberately made himself look older. If Zheng Dong knew that Yi Hao's real age was less than 15 years old, who knew what he would think? Young Emperor Yanlong, Zheng Dong greets you. Zheng Dong was surprised, but he still nodded slightly to greet Yi Hao. After all, he had his own identity. If it weren't for Yi Hao's duchy list, Zheng Dong wouldn't even look at Yi Hao. Lord Zheng, you don't have to be so courteous. Lord Zheng must be tired from the long journey. Why don't we talk while we eat? Yi Hao smiled and gestured to Zheng Dong. Zheng Dong looked at Yi Hao carefully. As the saying goes, don't hit a smiling person. Zheng Dong originally wanted to put Yi Hao in his place, but in the end, his plan was exposed just like that. Good boy, you're much more mature than His Majesty Fiend Demon when he was young. Zheng Dong couldn't help but praise him in his heart. Not to mention the duchies, even those marquisate states and kingdoms would bow and scrape before him. There weren't many people like Yi Hao who was neither servile nor overbearing. She thought that Yi Hao was purposely ignoring her, but Yi Hao's attitude didn't seem to be the case. He was so young, and he wasn't arrogant or weak. Let's see what good dishes a small duchy like yours can bring out. Young Emperor Yanlong is in the limelight on the duchy rankings. After the state banquet was set up, Yi Hao exchanged for a few bottles of white wine. Zheng Dong couldn't help but feel refreshed when he smelled the fragrance of the dishes and the wine. Hearing Zheng Dong's words, Yi Hao couldn't help but scratch his head. What was the duchy rankings? Being in the limelight? He did make a name for himself by killing Emperor Wu, but it had nothing to do with the duchy rankings. Moreover, Yi Hao had obtained the token from Emperor Wu, which represented the identity of the black-robed Emperor Wu. Yi Hao had no choice but to be careful. At that time, he issued a gag order. Under the system screening, all the enemy spies were all killed. Yi Hao was puzzled. Lord Zheng, what is this duchy rankings? When did this young emperor make a name for himself? This young emperor is very low-key. Zheng Dong drank a mouthful of white wine and almost choked. He looked at Yi Hao in surprise and asked carefully, "You really don't know about the duchy rankings?" Hearing Zheng Dong's raised tone, Yi Hao continued to shake his head innocently. "Oh my God, how did you do it? I don't know if those duchy emperors would be angered to death if they knew." When Zheng Dong saw that Yi Hao really didn't know about the duchy rankings, he couldn't help but slap his forehead. He looked at Yi Hao as if he was looking at a monster. Zheng Dong suppressed his hurt feelings and drank a cup of white wine. He explained to Yi Hao, "There's an imperial rankings in the world of 10,000 kingdoms. It is divided into," while listening to Zheng Dong's words, Yi Hao took out his imperial jade seal and inserted his consciousness into it. An ancient battlefield instantly appeared in his mind. The three words imperial rankings stood proudly between heaven and earth. Below it were 10 rankings that corresponded to the level of a country. Yi Hao noticed that only the duchy rankings at the bottom was shining with a golden light. Yi Hao used his consciousness and opened up the entire duchy rankings. Yi Hao saw that the duchy rankings had 100 pages. Each page had the names of 100 countries and the title of the country's emperor. Yi Hao looked at the first page and saw that the Fire Dragon Empire was ranked 50th. There were 2 small dragons behind it, which confused Yi Hao. Looking at the rankings, there were many countries with small dragons behind them. However, most of them only had one. Even the top 10 countries only had 2 small dragons. "Oh my God, this is too magical." Yi Hao sighed in his heart. The Imperial Jade Seal actually had such an effect. He didn't even know about it. After Zheng Dong finished speaking, he glanced at Yi Hao. He knew that Yi Hao was looking at the duchy rankings. He smiled bitterly and shook his head. He was completely convinced by the young man in front of him. He ate the delicious food in front of him heartily. It was much better than the food he had eaten when he was alive. Furthermore, although this wine wasn't spirit wine, that fiery feeling filled his taste buds. It was something he had never tasted before. What surprised him was that wine could be so delicious. "I don't want anything else, but I must get more of this wine." Zheng Dong had already changed his prejudice against Yi Hao. He was still thinking about how to deal with Yi Hao, but now he forgot about it. At the same time, he looked at the 2 bottles of Erguo Tu in front of him as if they were treasures. He didn't come to Yanlong in vain. "Lord Zheng, why are there 2 small dragons behind my Fire Dragon Empire?" After Yi Hao finished checking, he looked at Zheng Dong, who was eating and drinking, and asked. Zheng Dong raised his head and looked at Yi Hao. He lowered his head and continued to work hard. He said vaguely, "That's the honor of a country. It will be recorded in the history of the world of 10,000 kingdoms. Usually, as long as a record is broken, a small dragon will be rewarded. That doesn't seem to be of much use." Yi Hao shook his head. "Who said it's useless? That's the key to upgrading a country." Yi Hao didn't care about this. Anyway, the world of 10,000 kingdoms would belong to him sooner or later. All countries would cease to exist. Yi Hao wanted to break the law of the jungle and build a peaceful world for everyone to live in harmony and happiness. Unlike now, where there were wars everywhere in the world of 10,000 kingdoms. This was something Yi Hao couldn't bear to see. Moreover, Yi Hao had already guessed that the reason the system brought him to this world should be to take over this world. However, destroying this world would be the opposite. As long as he could make this world's faith become his It would be equivalent to this world becoming a part of the Chaos Realm. Chapter 159. Ultimate Mission of the 10,000 Nations Continent. Unify the 10,000 Nations Continent. No time limit. Rewards unknown. All right, the ultimate mission is out. Yi Hao felt immense pressure when he saw the mission. Luckily, there was no time limit. The 10,000 Nations Continent was boundless. According to the records, the 10,000 Nations Continent had never been unified. In the historical records, the 10,000 Nations Continent had always been a tripod of nations. That was why it lived up to its name. However, Yi Hao was full of confidence. No matter how big the 10,000 Nations Continent was, it was just a planet. He had the primal chaos realm with him. If he couldn't unify the 10,000 Nations Continent, he might as well kill himself with a piece of tofu. After Zheng Dong ate and drank to his heart's content, he went into a drunken stupor. Whether it was intentional or not, he revealed that the Fiend Demon Emperor was wary of Yi Hao. Yi Hao had to agree to the Fire Emperor's invitation on the surface. However, he had to listen to the Fiend Demon Emperor in secret. Otherwise, the Fiend Demon Emperor wouldn't just stand by and watch. He would definitely interfere. Thank you, Lord Zheng. Take these banknotes and drink. Yi Hao was surprised that Zheng Dong would tell him the truth. He immediately took out the banknotes that he had prepared. According to Yi Hao's temper, he would have asked Guan Yu to kill the Fiend Demon Emperor. The Fiend Demon Emperor was only a beginner martial honorable, while Guan Yu was a peak martial honorable. Killing the Fiend Demon Emperor was easy. However, if he were to join the Fire Emperor temporarily, that would be a problem. Yi Hao wasn't in a hurry to develop his country. He wanted to gain strength so that he could attack other countries. That would be much easier. Blindly staying in the Yin Dragon Empire would hinder his growth. Only by going out to explore and gain experience would he be able to grow quickly. This would put the Fire Dragon Empire in danger. If he went out to train and find pills for the Nangong Wentian, his country would be destroyed. He would go crazy. However, if he had the support of the Fire Dragon Empire, it would be different. Normal enemies, with Guan Yu around, would not be able to destroy Yanlong. Then, he could secretly develop his power. At the very least, he didn't have the right to fall out with the Fire Emperor. Moreover, if he wanted to kill his way to the Great Sun Empire and understand the power behind the Emperor, he had to at least have the ability of the Empire. Yi Hao did not doubt that if the Fiend Yao Emperor attacked Yanlong now, Yanlong would not be able to resist at all. Now that he had destroyed the Qian Kingdom, there was still a huge mess to be cleaned up. Fiend Demon Emperor, if you are heartless, I will not be righteous. I will let you be arrogant for a while. When I come back, the first thing I will do is destroy you. Yi Hao already had a plan in mind, and he only agreed verbally. As long as he could reach the level of Emperor Wu or summon a few more Emperor Wu, he wouldn't even have to worry about the Fire Empire. I'm a little drunk. I don't remember what I said just now. Forget about the money. Just give me a few more bottles of wine. Zheng Dong pushed back Yi Hao's large stack of banknotes. If he didn't have any banknotes, he could go to other countries to get some. This wine was unique. As for the things he said to Yi Hao, he was just being a little more thorough. Otherwise, as long as Yi Hao wasn't stupid, he would naturally understand the logic behind it. Why didn't he help him along the way? Even the Fiend Demon Emperor wouldn't have thought that his confidant almost sold him out for 2 bottles of Erguo Tu for the next 3 days. Other than handling official business, Yi Hao accompanied Zheng Dong to drink and eat. Naturally, he cooked up all kinds of dishes, causing Zheng Dong to return drunk every time. However, every time he was drunk, he would say some drunken words, "Master is really amazing." Just like that, he made an envoy from the Spirit Nation call him brother. Zhou Lu stood at the side, his face full of admiration. That's nothing. To be able to call him Master Brother is that old man's fortune. The other generals were assigned to manage the cities. Cheng Yaojin was familiar with the palace, so he continued to be arranged by Yi Hao to be a commander in the palace. At this time, Cheng Yaojin had stolen a drumstick from somewhere. He took a big bite out of it and spoke with a muffled voice. Zhou Lu and Li Hong stood outside the door, shocked by Cheng Yaojin's sudden appearance. You came out of nowhere. Li Hong looked at Cheng Yaojin, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. You're on duty, and you're stealing food again. Cheng Yaojin hurriedly put the drumstick behind him, licked his fingers, and stretched out his arm to stop Li Hong. Lord Li, you said that your daughter and master. Cheng Yaojin asked nosily. Don't talk nonsense. Li Hong didn't care about Cheng Yaojin's greasy hand. He hurriedly pulled Cheng Yaojin and Zhou Lu to the side. Who's talking nonsense? That day in the main hall, we all saw how heartbroken your daughter was. Even I, old Cheng, was heartbroken. Moreover, Master even wiped away your daughter's tears. Cheng Yaojin said, as if it was a matter of fact. Why is Lord Li still unwilling? If I had a daughter, I would want to marry Master. Zhou Lu and Cheng Yaojin looked at each other. When they saw that Li Hong was still frowning and thinking, they smiled and said. Li Hong looked at the two helplessly. He looked around and found that there was no one around. Actually, I also have some doubts, but my daughter won't say anything. Lord Li, my feeling is definitely correct. Moreover, His Majesty is not young anymore. He still doesn't have a concubine. If your daughter marries Master, she might become the Empress. Zhou Lu analyzed. Zhou Lu was very envious of Li Hong in his heart. He could have such a smart daughter. Most importantly, she had an ambiguous relationship with Yi Hao. But we can't make the decision for Master. Li Hong was obviously very tempted. He had seen Yi Hao's achievements. In his eyes, if the URA could marry Yi Hao, regardless of whether she could become the Empress or not, it would be his greatest blessing. Yi Hao had become the ruler of a country at a young age. Most importantly, he was very smart and had strength. Moreover, he had a good relationship with his daughter. If Yi Hao said that he wanted to take his daughter as his concubine, he would agree 100 times. Most importantly, Yi Hao had never said that he wanted to take a concubine. Lord Li, you have to be careful. There's still Zhao Yunhan in the harem. Cheng Yaojin took a bite of the drumstick and continued to provoke Li Hong. She dared to threaten to divorce Master. Now, she still doesn't know that she's the princess of a fallen country. Most importantly, she doesn't even know Master's true identity. Will Master take her as his concubine? Li Hong snorted at Cheng Yaojin's words and shook his head with a smile. Then why did Master kill her? Moreover, Zhao Yunhan and your daughter each have their own merits. She doesn't lose to your daughter at all. Cheng Yaojin saw that Li Hong didn't care and couldn't help but worry for Li Hong. Is it possible? Li Hong was also a little uncertain and asked the two doubtfully. Chapter 160. Don't. Give me some ideas. Li Hong couldn't help but feel anxious when he saw the two's nonchalance. He said painfully, Master gave me 3 bottles of Erguatu. I'll take one out and treat you to it. Cheng Yaojin and Zhou Hao immediately shook their heads. 1 bottle for 2 people. That's too stingy. At least 1 bottle per person. All right, for our daughter's happiness, 2 bottles it is. Li Hong felt even more pain, but seeing that the two wouldn't act until they saw the hair, he could only grit his teeth and agree. Ha, that's right. Cheng Yaojin and Zhou Hao immediately revealed a look of success. Let's go. We'll discuss it in your residence. Cheng Yaojin immediately drooled at the thought of drinking Erguatu. He couldn't wait to drag Li Hong away. The next day, Zheng Dong prepared to leave reluctantly. These days in Yanlong have been very enjoyable. Young Emperor, you don't have to send me off. I'm leaving. Yi Hao sent Zheng Dong out of the palace. Zheng Dong stopped his horse and said, All right, I won't send you off. Men, bring me the gifts. Yi Hao jumped off his purple cry flying horse and waved his hand. A few men immediately carried 2 large boxes over. Zheng Dong looked at the 2 boxes in confusion. Young Emperor, take these jewels back. I, Zheng Dong, may be greedy, but I've never taken money from my friends. Open them. Yi Hao ordered softly. The guards quickly opened the boxes. Zheng Dong's eyes widened when he saw the contents of the boxes. Young Emperor, this. Zheng Dong was so excited that he couldn't speak. He quickly ran to the boxes and saw that there were 66 bottles of Erguatu in each box. He was overjoyed. He originally wanted to squeeze a few bottles of Erguatu out of Yi Hao, but after drinking and chatting with Yi Hao for 3 days, he couldn't bring himself to ask. He didn't expect Yi Hao to have already prepared them. These are much more precious than jewels. Lord Zheng, this is more than half of my stock. Please don't think it's too little. Yi Hao deliberately pretended to be pained. After all, this was the only way to make Zheng Dong feel that this wine was precious. The rarer something was, the more precious it was. Zheng Dong also believed it. After all, Yi Hao had explained to him how difficult and rare it was to make this wine. Of course, this was made up by Yi Hao himself, but Zheng Dong believed it without a doubt. It was his first time drinking this wine, and it tasted so good. It would be abnormal if it was so easy to make. Seeing that Erguo 2 was so popular, Yi Hao also had the idea of making Erguo 2. After all, there was a recipe in his space. You need a lot of emperors. Take one box back, Zheng Dong said reluctantly. Yi Hao chuckled and said, Lord Zheng, are you looking down on me? How can this little wine compare to our friendship? Then I won't be pretentious. Thank you, young emperor. Zheng Dong ordered his men to carry all the wine to the carriage. He had already made up his mind to say more good things about Yi Hao in front of the fiend demon emperor. Wait a moment, Lord Zheng. I want to ask, are there any large alchemy sects nearby? Just as Zheng Dong was about to mount his horse, Yi Hao suddenly thought of something important and hurriedly asked. Zheng Dong thought for a moment and said, the big alchemy sect is 100,000 kilometers to the west. There's a sect called Gedanzan. I don't know why young emperor is asking about this. Don't tell me you want to buy pills. What kind of pills do you need? As long as the level isn't too high, I can buy them for you. Zheng Dong guessed. At the same time, he felt embarrassed to take so much wine from Yi Hao for free. He also wanted to help Yi Hao. No, I'm just curious. Yi Hao didn't want to say more to Zheng Dong. After all, he needed a divine pill. How could Zheng Dong buy it? Seeing that Yi Hao didn't want to say more, Zheng Dong didn't ask anymore. Then I'll take my leave. After a few days of development, Yi Hao had reclaimed all the territories of Qian and Zhao. At the same time, he changed many policies, which made the people cheer loudly. They had tacitly agreed to Yan Long's rule. At the same time, Yi Hao recruited a lot of soldiers and made all the generals train day and night. Yi Hao ordered all the old, weak, and sick in the army to be removed. The benefits were much better than before. At the same time, good performance was rewarded with techniques. This caused a wave of people to join the army. Qian was bigger, so there were more troops. The destruction of the royal family of Qian naturally caused a lot of rebellions. However, under Guan Yu's suppression, those who stood out were all beheaded and had to surrender obediently. Right now, the Flame Dragon Empire had a total of 1.5 million regular soldiers. In this area, they were the overlords that no one dared to offend. In addition, the Fire Emperor had announced that Yan Long was their vassal state. This made more people not dare to offend Yi Hao. In order to know more about his own troops, Yi Hao changed his clothes and went to the recruitment center to register without the other generals knowing. Yi Hao stood in the long registration line, waiting to register. He couldn't help but regret it. If he had known this would happen, he would have gotten identity and sneaked into the army camp. He didn't have to waste time here. Lining up here reminded Yi Hao of the feeling of lining up for meals in school. Get out of my way. How dare you block my way? I'll twist your head off. Just as Yi Hao was feeling frustrated, a commotion came from behind. It's General Wu's son. Why is he here? This General Wu is really lucky. So many generals have been killed, but he's still sitting in the general's seat. Sigh, that person is going to be unlucky again. He's going to lose a layer of skin, even if he doesn't die. Hearing the commotion in the queue, Yi Hao couldn't help but be curious. Who would dare to be so arrogant in his own troops? The commotion quickly attracted a group of soldiers. Yi Hao decided not to make a move himself. He wanted to see how this group of soldiers would deal with it. How dare you make a ruckus in the military registration center? Be careful, they'll arrest all of you and lock you up for 2 days. Zhang Hao was recently promoted to a squad leader. He couldn't help but feel refreshed. He had been in charge of the recruitment for the past few days. It wasn't easy for someone to cause trouble. Of course, he had to show off his power. He walked over with his chest puffed out and his head held high. Who are you? How dare you be so arrogant here? Men, arrest him. Zhang Hao walked into the crowd. He saw Wu Yu with his arms crossed as he watched his subordinates beat up a civilian. "You're squad leader Zhang, right? You came to my house 2 days ago. Do you still remember me?" Wu Yu looked at Zhang Hao with disdain and said with a smile, "You are?" Zhang Hao looked at Wu Yu carefully. "Young Master Wu, why are you here? Put away your weapons and arrest this person who offended young Master Wu." "Captain, this isn't good." Jiang Li was also a civilian. Now that he saw a civilian being bullied, he was dissatisfied with the actions of the squad leader. However, there was nothing he could do. "Who do you think you are to remind me?" Zhang Hao felt humiliated when he saw his subordinates refuting his decision. He wanted to teach Jiang Li a lesson. Chapter 161. Who do you think you are? Who are you to speak here? Zhang Hao stopped his attack on Jiang Li and turned to look at Yi Hao. Seeing that Yi Hao was dressed like a commoner, he said contemptuously, "Kid, kneel down and I'll spare your life." Arrogant. Insufferably arrogant. If not for the fact that everyone knew that he was a squad leader, they would have thought that he was a general. "Little brother, this is not something you can control. You should leave." Jiang Li did not expect that someone would stand up for him. However, when he saw Yi Hao's attire, he immediately said worriedly. At the same time, he took out all his money and stuffed it into Zhang Hao's hands with a smile. "Squad leader, this is a hothead. Don't worry about him. Just let him go. F*CKU. You think you can get rid of me with this amount of money?" Zhang Hao kept the money, but he did not want to let it go so easily. Today was a rare opportunity for him to establish his authority. He might even be able to get Wu Yu's recognition and ride on his coattails. If that was the case, his status might even rise again. Jiang Li and Yi Hao would be his tools to establish his might. "I told you to stop. Looks like you don't want your arm anymore." Yi Hao was very satisfied with Jiang Li's performance. Soldiers with a sense of justice like him were the pillars of the army. Trash like Zhang Hao was the parasite in the army. Seeing that Zhang Hao attacked again, Yi Hao immediately took out his weapon. A scream was heard. In the blink of an eye, Yi Hao raised the knife in his hand. Zhang Hao's shoulder fell to the ground and blood spurted out instantly. Who is this kid? How dare he attack a soldier? This kid is finished. He dared to chop off a soldier's arm. He won't be able to escape death today. This soldier obviously wants to use this kid to demonstrate his authority. Look at this kid's attire. He's just a commoner. Now that he has chopped off this soldier's arm, he won't be able to escape death. Did anyone notice that this kid is so fast? Good kid, you dare to hurt someone. Men, chop him to death. Wei was slightly taken aback. He looked at the arm lying on the ground, covered in blood, and Zhang Hao, who was clutching his shoulder and screaming. He quickly recovered and looked at Yi Hao with a sinister smile. This Zhang Hao obviously wanted to rely on him. Now that his arm was chopped off by a commoner, how is he going to survive in this world? Now that his father's position in the military had risen, it naturally gave him the right to be arrogant. Everyone knew that the current monarch Yanlong was incomparably powerful. He had single-handedly destroyed the Qian country. The current Fire Dragon Empire could be said to be an overlord. Even the Fire Empire announced that they were trying to rope in the Fire Dragon Empire, which further cemented the position of the Fire Dragon Empire. Now, everyone knew that the Fire Dragon Empire was not to be trifled with, and young Emperor Yanlong strongly supported the development of the military. With his father backing him up, you could be said to be unscrupulous in the military. Commoners like Yi Hao could do whatever they wanted. As long as he spoke, he could kill as many as he wanted. No one would dare to refute him. As long as this matter did not spread to young Emperor Yanlong's ears, there would be no problem at all. Wait a minute. Young Emperor Yanlong has issued various decrees. Innocent people cannot command the military, and innocent people cannot be killed. Do you want to knowingly break the law? Yi Hao questioned loudly. A few soldiers rushed up and looked at each other. Yi Hao was right. Knowingly breaking the law would result in 80 flogs and a year's worth of salary being deducted. If it was serious, they would be beheaded. Ha ha ha. Young Emperor Yanlong's decree. You seem to have heard the funniest joke. Young Emperor Yanlong has the energy to care about the lives of you commoners? Those decrees are only for commoners like you. He can't control me. When a surrounding crowd heard Wu Yu's words, they all had bitter expressions. Wu Yu was right. Although young Emperor Yanlong had issued these decrees, they were only effective for commoners. For a foppish son like Wu Yu, they turn a blind eye. Can't control you? Can't control you? I want to know who your father is. Yi Hao was so angry that he laughed. He thought that the decrees he issued would definitely be carried out. He did not expect that there would really be people who would obey in public, but oppose in private. Even a foppish son could use his father's name to oppress commoners and order the country's soldiers. Yi Hao cannot stand it anymore. My father is Wu Longqing, the righteous general appointed by His Majesty, Wu Yu said proudly. Hearing Wu Yu's words, the surrounding people were very envious. It was such a great honor to be appointed by Yanlong's young emperor. No wonder Wu Yu had the right to be so arrogant. Yi Hao frowned inwardly. This righteous general was just a general with a surplus title. Yi Hao had no impression of him at all. This was because all surplus generals below rank 5 were handed over to the great generals to deal with, and then they would stamp their approval. Now, he had become a general appointed by himself. It had to be said that this Wu Yu was really good at bragging. However, the surrounding people all believed him. All of you do it, Wu Yu ordered. At this moment, the soldiers no longer hesitated. They were obviously affected by Wu Yu's father's identity. Wu Yu was a general appointed by the young emperor. This showed how much the young emperor valued Wu Yu's father. Even if the young emperor knew, would he punish his own general for a commoner? In everyone's impression, this was absolutely impossible. Sigh. Yi Hao looked at the soldiers who were rushing towards him. He was intimidated by Wu Yu's words. He could not help but sigh softly. Hurry up and run. You can't win against these people. Jiangli hesitated for a moment and stood in front of Yi Hao resolutely. After all, Yi Hao was standing up for him. At worst, he would not be a soldier anymore. Yi Hao was a little surprised that Jiangli could still stand up at this time. Aren't you afraid? Yanlong's policies are so good now. If you stand up now, you might not be a soldier anymore. Jiang Li's face was filled with regret. He shook his head and smiled bitterly. So what if the policies are good? It's a pity that the young emperor can't see it. If the purpose of being a soldier is to bully commoners, I don't want to be a soldier anymore. Who says I can't see it? Yi Hao muttered happily. He put away his weapon and rushed towards the soldiers. These people did not deserve to die, but Yi Hao did not mind teaching them a lesson. He did not show them any mercy. All the soldiers were about to get close to him, but before they could hit him, they were sent flying. Boy, do you want to go against the Fire Dragon Empire? You know that you're fighting against the Fire Dragon Empire's soldiers. We did not expect Yi Hao to still dare to attack. What right did this commoner have to challenge his authority again and again? Don't come over. I'll let you go. Go. Seeing that Yi Hao had beaten all the soldiers to the ground and could not move anymore and was slowly walking towards him, Wu Yu could not help but feel anxious. Chapter 162. As the saying goes, there will always be brave men when there is a great reward. Under Wu Yu's promise, many martial artists immediately felt a rush of excitement. Most of them came here to become soldiers. Since they were here to become soldiers, they definitely wanted to get a better position. If they could get Wu Yu's promise, then at least they would be able to mix in the army like a fish in water. You have to think carefully about whether you have the ability. Yi Hao glanced at a few warriors who wanted to make a move and said with a chuckle, The few warriors who wanted to make a move looked at Yi Hao's sharp gaze and the soldier lying on the ground wailing. They couldn't help but hesitate. Trespassing into the military camp. Even if my subordinates commit murder, I won't let you off easily. Yi Hao lifted Wu Yu and threw him to the ground. You dare hit me. Wu Yu's face was full of disbelief as he clutched his chest in pain. Yi Hao sneered and drew his weapon. It wouldn't be too much to kill this kind of dandy. Seeing Yi Hao's cold smile, Wu Yu couldn't help but shiver and beg for mercy. Little master, please spare me. I'll give you whatever you want. His threats were only effective on those cowardly commoners. Wu Yu knew very well that he had to give in to this kind of person who didn't fear death. It's over. Yi Hao didn't care about Wu Yu's begging for mercy at all. Stop. A woman's pleasant voice rang out, bullying people in broad daylight. I'm going to kill you. Yi Hao was stunned for a moment. Before he could react, a girl in black, holding a pitch-black sword, quickly attacked him. Yi Hao reacted quickly and quickly blocked with his blood-stained dual blades. However, the huge impact caused Yi Hao to retreat dozens of steps, while the girl in black stood on the spot and glared at him. What a strong woman. Yi Hao was shocked. Although he was a first-level martial king, he couldn't lose even if he was against a fifth-level martial king. Yi Hao used an appraisal technique on her. Xiechunyu strength. Third-level martial spirit race. Blood beast clan. Confuse various magical beasts into your bloodline and use the power of your bloodline to summon powerful magical beasts to fight for you. The summoned magical beasts are much stronger than ordinary magical beasts. No wonder. So it's the third level of the martial spirit realm. He's nearly an entire realm stronger than me. After Yi Hao checked Xiechunyu's information, he could not help but reveal a surprised expression. Looking at Xiechunyu's appearance, she was not much older than him, but her cultivation level was indeed not low. But what exactly was going on with the Blood Fiend clan? However, based on its introduction, it should be very powerful. Ordinary magical beasts were much stronger than warriors of the same level. Normally, they would contract magical beasts, but the corresponding strength of the magical beasts would be reduced by a lot. However, fusing with the power of the bloodline could actually make the magical beasts even stronger. This made Yi Hao think of the summoner class. But the blood beasts were different from the summoner class. This made Yi Hao very curious. How could a magic beast be fused into one's bloodline and then become stronger? Next, Yi Hao saw this valiant scene. He saw Xiechunyu use the black sword in her hand to cut a wound on her arm. Blood dripped onto the ground. Yi Hao was stunned. This girl's temper was too big. Wasn't it just that she didn't kill him? There was no need to cut her wrist and commit suicide just because of a disagreement. However, the wound on Xiechunyu's wrist quickly disappeared, and the drop of blood on the ground made Yi Hao feel a powerful force. Yi Hao looked at the drop of blood on the ground cautiously. Could this be the ability of the Blood Fiend clan? Yi Hao guessed in his heart. The drop of blood on the ground, in front of everyone's eyes, seemed to grow with the wind. It grew bigger and bigger, and finally formed a blood wolf of the third level of the martial spirit realm. Damn, so powerful. A drop of blood can turn into a blood wolf of the third level of the martial spirit realm. Yi Hao was shocked. If he hadn't seen with his own eyes that this 4 to 5 meter tall blood wolf was formed from a drop of blood, he wouldn't have believed it. Little blood, go and teach him a lesson. After Xiechunyu transformed into a blood wolf, her face turned pale as she said to the blood wolf. The blood wolf seemed to be very intelligent and nodded obediently. After turning its head, it fiercely opened its bloody mouth and pounced on Yi Hao. Yi Hao was anxious. Did he have to summon the giant dragon? The giant dragon was injured a few days ago, but there were still remnants of the holy pill in its body. It quickly recovered, but its realm might be about the same as the blood wolf. Looking at the blood wolf that was a few meters away from him, Yi Hao was just about to release the giant dragon when Guan Yu's voice came from the sky. Stop. Guan Yu's strength was at the peak of the martial venerable realm. He instantly pressed the blood wolf to the ground. The blood wolf opened its bloody mouth and fiercely struggled, but it was useless. A martial venerable. Xiechunyu panicked. She could not believe that a martial venerable would appear here. General Guan is here. All the people immediately knelt on the ground with respect and admiration. Little brother, quickly kneel down. Jiangli looked at the blood wolf that was crawling on the ground in fear. She nervously moved to Yi Hao's side and pulled on Yi Hao's sleeve as she whispered in a low voice. Yi Hao smiled and shook his head. It was good enough that Guan Yu did not kneel to him, but he still wanted him to kneel to him. Jiangli sighed. Fine. You have a strong personality. You will definitely not kneel to others. What's going on here? Who dares to hurt Yanlong's soldiers? Guan Yu was attracted by the blood wolf's aura. At first, he did not know what was going on. Now that he saw the soldiers lying on the ground, his face turned cold and he asked sternly, General Guan, it's all because of that brat. Quickly kill him. When Wu Yu saw Guan Yu, it was as if he saw a savior. He quickly got up and said, "Who are you?" Guan Yu looked at Wu Yu in confusion. This kind of person was obviously not a good person. General Guan, this is my son. Wu Lingqing hurriedly ran here after being informed by the soldiers. Seeing Guan Yu questioning his son, he hurriedly said, "So it's General Wu." Guan Yu's expression did not change, but a trace of disgust flashed in his eyes. Recently, he had also been collecting evidence of Wu Lingqing's crimes. If it were not for the fact that he had to keep a few generals alive to stabilize the morale of the army, he would have arrested Wu Lingqing long ago. "Father, you have to seek justice for your son." When Wu Yu saw his father, he quickly ran to Wu Lingqing and cried bitterly, "Don't worry. Today, even if it's the King of Heaven, I will avenge you." Wu Lingqing looked at his son with heartache. Then he looked at Yi Hao with contempt. "Is it you who hurt my son?" "Oof, what a big tone." Yi Hao snorted coldly. It seemed that this father and son were the same kind of people. Their tone was really arrogant. Yi Hao wanted to see what kind of tricks this father and son could play. "General Guan, I'll have to trouble you to kill this arrogant brat." Wu Lingqing's eyes flashed with coldness as he asked Guan Yu for instructions. Chapter 163. Xie Chunyu frowned and looked at Yi Hao apologetically. Yi Hao did not look like a bully. She could only blame herself for being too impulsive. "I seem to have misunderstood him. What should I do now?" Xie Chunyu touched the purple umbrella on her back, and a conflicted expression appeared on her face. She had said before that she would never use this spiritual artifact again because this spiritual artifact was given her by someone she both loved and hated. She had an irreconcilable feud with that person. That person had lied to her. However, she had to use this spiritual weapon if she wanted to save Yi Hao from Guan Yu, a martial honorable. "Enough!" Yi Hao snorted. 8 martial king knights appeared around him. They were Yi Hao's bodyguards who had been secretly protecting him. They all came out from the crowd. "The young emperor is here. Kneel down." One of the martial kings snorted. The other 4 martial kings pulled up 4 yellow cloths and blocked Yi Hao in the middle. Yi Hao quickly changed into his embroidered robe. The 4 yellow cloths fell down, revealing Yi Hao in his young emperor disguise. "How dare you disguise yourself as the young emperor?" "General Guan, kill this brat." Wu Yu sneered. "How dare you speak so loudly in front of the young emperor?" One of the martial kings drew his weapon and sent Wu Yu's head flying. Wu Lingqing wanted to stop him, but it was too late. He did not expect the martial king to suddenly attack. "General Guan." Wu Lingqing had pinned his hopes on Guan Yu. Unexpectedly, Guan Yu landed on the ground and immediately knelt in front of Yi Hao. "Greetings to the Lord. May the Lord live for 10,000 years. Please punish me for not being able to welcome the Lord." "What? It's really the Lord." The surrounding people were shocked when they saw this. He was dressed as a commoner. How did he become the young emperor? Moreover, the young emperor was such a noble. Why would he appear here? Many people looked at Wu Lingqing's bitter face and laughed mockingly. His son had offended the young emperor and was now killed. He had even wanted to kill the young emperor before, so he could not escape punishment. "This commoner greets the Lord." Many commoners reacted and immediately knelt in front of Yi Hao. "Wu Lingqing, do you know your crime?" Yi Hao asked softly as he looked at Wu Lingqing's ever-changing face. Wu Lingqing gritted his teeth. "A dead pig doesn't know what's hot. This subject doesn't know. Moreover, Lord's men kill my son. I wonder if Lord can give me an explanation." "General Wu, you're so powerful. You didn't even kneel when you saw me." Yi Hao looked at Wu Lingqing. Wu Lingqing didn't hide the hatred in his eyes. "Wu Lingqing, how dare you? How dare you insult Lord Wu and I?" When Guan Yu heard Yi Hao's words, he turned around and yelled out furiously. Wu Lingqing panicked. He was still very fearful of Guan Yu's strength. He had no choice but to kneel down unwillingly. This subject greets the young emperor. "Guan Yu, how can this piece of trash be a general of our country?" Yi Hao didn't care about Wu Lingqing's reputation and scolded Guan Yu. This subject knows his crime. Guan Yu didn't dare to refute and could only kneel on the ground. Yi Hao pointed at Jiang Li, who was kneeling beside him, and softly said, "Explain everything that you did just now. Explain everything in detail." Jiang Li didn't expect this young man to be the young emperor. Jiang Li suddenly remembered. When she said that the young emperor couldn't see everything that she did, Yi Hao muttered softly, "Who said that he couldn't see?" Jiang Li thought that she heard it and didn't care. She didn't expect Yi Hao to really be the young emperor. "Yes, your majesty." Jiang Li stood up respectfully. General Wu's son used his name to bully the commoners and even tried to command the soldiers. He deceived the emperor. "You're talking nonsense," Wu Longxing said angrily. The first part wasn't a big deal, but the second part was that commanding the soldiers as an ordinary person was a capital offense. Moreover, deceiving the emperor was a crime that could lead to the extermination of an entire family. "Tell me, why did Wu Longxing beat you up?" Yi Hao took out a pill from his space and handed it to the commoner who was beaten up on the ground. The commoner who was beaten up couldn't believe what he was seeing. He slowly took the pill and swallowed it with trembling hands. The effect of the golden sword pill was comparable to a holy medicine for a low-level martial artist like him. His wounds healed quickly. Feeling the pain disappear, the commoner said gratefully, "Thank you, my lord. Thank you, my lord." The young emperor doesn't seem like a ruthless villain like the rumors say. This young emperor seems a little different. The previous emperors never cared about our lives. He's so lucky to be rewarded with a pill by the young emperor. When the commoners saw this, they started discussing. The previous emperors only cared about their own interests. They didn't care about the lives of low-level people like them. It was normal for commoners to be bullied. Which emperor would kill a general's son for commoners? Therefore, in the 10,000 land continent, commoners didn't care about the concept of a country at all. No matter how many emperors there were, their lives wouldn't change. No emperor would care about their lives. They could only pray that the emperor wouldn't increase their taxes. They would be satisfied. In the 10,000 land continent, where the strong ruled, commoners were always at the bottom. Some people wanted to change their lives. They had to become stronger, while others could only live their lives in a muddle-headed state. Therefore, they were surprised that Yi Hao appeared here dressed as a commoner. On the other hand, Yi Hao had acted on behalf of the commoners and taken out pills to save them. This caused even more commoners to feel moved to tears. They finally knew that the emperor wasn't just a tyrannical person who bullied the weak. He would also think for the commoners. Yi Hao looked at the commoners. Some of them were already crying. He could only sigh at how difficult it was for the weak to live in the 10,000 land continent. This also proved how lowly the weak were in the eyes of the strong. But Yi Hao knew that if he wanted to unify the world, these commoners, these weak people, were the most important. Therefore, when Yi Hao ascended the throne, he announced some policies that were beneficial to the commoners. One of them was to reduce taxes. Even if one wasn't a martial artist, he could still become a soldier. As long as he worked hard enough, he could still achieve success. The commoners said sadly, "I listened to my mother and came to sign up. But when I was queuing, that young master said that I was blocking his way. I was about to explain myself when he hit me." Chapter 164. In a world of 10,000 kingdoms, one had the right to speak if one had the power. Wu Longxing had the right to kill people at will. This was deeply ingrained in his mind. Moreover, his son had only injured him, not killed him. No matter what, he was still a general of the 7th-level martial marquis. He did not believe that Yi Hao would blame him for this low-level martial artist. "Since you've already said that you're my subordinate, then this young emperor shall grant you death. Do it yourself." A martial king brought over a chair from somewhere, sat on it as he spoke. "You?" Wu Longxing was furious. He did not expect Yi Hao to really want to kill him. "What? You don't want to?" Yi Hao asked sarcastically. "No way. Young emperor is really going to kill him? Young emperor, are you really going to stand up for us poor people?" The people kneeling on the ground looked at the young man sitting on the chair, afraid that they had misheard. "Guan Yu, I order you to gather all the evidence of Wu Longxing's crimes within 2 hours." Yi Hao ordered Guan Yu. "Also, Give me a list of all the generals and officials under your command. I want to see all their information, regardless of whether they are clean or not. Yi Hao wanted to kill for the first time, and it was towards his own subordinates. He thought that with his authority and various legal restrictions, his subordinates would listen to him obediently. Who would have thought that all of them would feign compliance and act as if they were the boss? Yi Hao wanted to rebuild the military's morale. Originally, these generals were summoned by him, so he was not worried about them. However, now that his army had expanded, he could not summon enough generals, so there would be some trash. What Yi Hao wanted to do was to get rid of all these trash before he left Yanlong. Yes, Your Majesty. Guan Yu quickly went to collect the information. It seems that I should set up something like an intelligence bureau. Otherwise, there is no way to bind these civil and military officials. Yi Hao thought to himself. Thinking of the Imperial Secret Service and the Six Fan School in his previous life, it seemed that he should set up one too. Yi Hao was lying on the chair. He was bored and looked at Xie Chunyu. Her blood wolf had already been locked in the dragon prison lake by Yi Hao. Xie Chunyu's strength had decreased greatly. As a precaution, Xie Chunyu's strength had also been sealed by Guan Yu. From time to time, someone would bring in evidence and hand it over to Yi Hao. Looking at the thick pile of evidence in Yi Hao's hands, Wu Longqing gradually revealed a smug expression. In his opinion, Yi Hao was just using his connections to intimidate others. There were so many officials and generals. How many of them were clean? How could Yi Hao kill all of them? Then wouldn't all Yanlong's officials be in danger? Yi Hao's actions would only result in him slapping his own face. Xie Chunyu was furious. Her blood wolf was gone, and her strength was sealed. No matter how she provoked Yi Hao did not speak to her except to look at her. In the end, she felt bored and wanted to know what Yi Hao wanted to do. Xie Chunyu was puzzled. Does he want to kill his own subordinates for these commoners? In her eyes, although the commoners were pitiful, she knew that this was a world where the strong were respected. The strength of a country mainly depended on these officials. Those who could become high-ranking officials were either relatively strong or had the support of their families. And the commoners were basically weak. Who would be stupid enough to kill the strong for a bunch of weaklings? Everyone knew that this was a losing deal. Therefore, in the 10,000 Kingdoms continent, as long as the officials were strong enough, they would not care about their character. Even if they did many bad things, they would turn a blind eye. After all, at crucial moments, they still needed to rely on these generals to fight the war. But Yi Hao knew that if a country did not even have a good foundation, then no matter how strong the country was, it would eventually collapse. And these officials did not even listen to him. What was the point of keeping them? This was because Yi Hao had already given them more than enough. Whether it was power or status, they were all compatible with his strength. If they continued to be greedy, then they could not blame Yi Hao for being ruthless. Cultivation methods, spirit tools, pills, as long as they were of equal strength, Yi Hao would not be stingy and would reward them. How many duchies could do this? Since Yi Hao wanted to unify the 10,000 Kingdoms continent, he had to break this pattern. His country had to rely on the law to operate. It was not that you could kill the innocent just because you were strong or a general. Of course, it was extremely difficult to break this pattern. The concept of the 10,000 Kingdoms continent being respected by the strong was deeply ingrained in the people's hearts. And the strong killing the weak was the natural right of the strong. As long as their fists were big enough, they could kill at will. And if Yi Hao wanted to break this pattern, it was equivalent to depriving the strong of this right. Then, would the strong of the 10,000 Kingdoms continent agree? So, this was extremely difficult. But compared to unifying the 10,000 Kingdoms continent, which one was easy? And taking revenge for the ancestors of the Shao family, which one was not easy? Since he wanted to rule this world, then he had to get rid of all the bad habits of this world and create a well-developed 10,000 Kingdoms continent. Go, capture these people for me. Yi Hao pulled out a list of people who had committed more serious crimes. Soon, more than 10 officials were brought over by the Martial King. They were all dumbfounded. General Wu, what is going on? These officials had never seen Yi Hao before. They thought that some strong person had descended or that the Fire Dragon Empire had changed hands. Young master, we are willing to rely on you, as long as you don't kill us. Some people even said directly to Yi Hao. Yi Hao's face darkened. He didn't even understand the situation, and he had already started to betray him. If he still allowed such a person to hold an important position, wouldn't that be sending Yin Long to his death? They are really reckless. The Lord is here, and they want to betray the country. Yeah, isn't that the city lord? He was captured too, but I hope that the Lord will kill him. Usually these officials, other than bullying us, what good have they done? The surrounding crowd was already on Yi Hao's side. Many of them had already regarded themselves as the people of the Fire Dragon Empire. In fact, the hearts of these people were simple. As long as you were good to them, they would work for you. Don't care about me. I'm going to sign up for the army later. Count me in. If we don't follow such a good lord, then we are really blind. Hee, I have already signed up. Seeing that the officials and generals who usually bullied the commoners were arrested, the commoners said happily. Chapter 165. Young Emperor? You're Yin Long's young emperor. Impossible, absolutely impossible. The official who wanted to betray Yi Hao turned purple when he heard the discussions of the civilians around him. His face was filled with disbelief, and he started babbling incoherently. The official saw that Yi Hao didn't speak and glanced at Wu Lengxing's gloating expression. He knew that Yi Hao's identity couldn't be wrong. He immediately cried and knelt at Yi Hao's feet, begging for mercy. Young Emperor, please spare my life. I was muddle-headed for a moment. Please spare me. What's the use of keeping a traitor alive? Tie him up. Yi Hao's kingly aura grew with his anger, and none of the officials dared to look him in the eye. Go and summon all the officials and generals in this city. If they're not here within an hour, they can forget about ever coming back. Yi Hao wanted to let all his officials know what the consequences of being disloyal to the Fire Dragon Empire were. After an hour, Yi Hao gathered all the officials and even the soldiers who were still in training. They looked at him quietly. All right, since everyone is here, I should tell you about Yin Long's laws. Yi Hao closed his eyes for more than an hour before suddenly opening them. He scanned everyone. At this moment, there were more than 1 million people, including the soldiers and civilians. When they saw Yi Hao's gaze, they all lowered their heads obediently, not daring to touch Yi Hao's authority. Yi Hao walked slowly to the official who wanted to betray the empire. My lord, please spare my life. I know my mistake. Seeing Yi Hao make such a big scene, he already knew that Yi Hao wanted to use him to establish his authority. Beads of sweat kept falling from his head, but no matter how hard he struggled, he couldn't break free from the restraints of the 2 martial kings. Soldiers. Yi Hao looked at the 300,000 soldiers and spoke using the power of martial arts. Most of you have sons and daughters, your own parents, your own wives, your own relatives, your own families. Although you don't usually see them, you are their protection, their pride. If you don't want to be strong when Yin Long is destroyed, they will be the ones to be humiliated. I, the young emperor, will build a peaceful and just country where everyone can live happily instead of being bullied and humiliated. I don't know if you want this kind of life. Do you want your families to live this kind of life? Yi Hao's voice was very loud. It shook everyone's hearts, regardless of whether they were soldiers or civilians. Everyone yearned for that kind of life, but in the past, they didn't have the ability. That kind of life was something they didn't even dare to think about. Now, Yi Hao said that he would give them that kind of life. Yi Hao's image of loving the people gradually formed a great image in the hearts of every civilian and soldier. We want that kind of life. We swear to follow the young emperor until death. We swear to be loyal to the Fire Dragon Empire until death. Someone shouted, and everyone's faces turned red as they shouted. It's done. Seeing the reaction of the crowd, Yi Hao knew that his benevolent image had been completely established. Next, he had to establish another side of himself to frighten this person with bad intentions. Silence. Yi Hao raised his right hand slightly, and everyone immediately quieted down. This meant that Yi Hao had a sufficient position in their hearts. If I want to give you this kind of life, I need you to work hard. The stronger you are, the stronger Yin Long will be. Then, no one will dare to provoke Yin Long. We swear to be loyal to Yin Long until death. Apart from the soldiers, even the civilians began to shout loudly. They already regarded themselves as the citizens of the Fire Dragon Empire. Only by implanting the concept of the country into everyone's mind could they feel a sense of belonging. Only then would they be willing to work even harder for the country. This was something that many emperors neglected. Apart from the strong empires, other weak countries couldn't make you feel a sense of belonging. This was also why so many countries in the world of 10,000 kingdoms were destroyed every day, but it didn't affect the civilians at all. In their minds, it was hard to bring up the hatred of a fallen country. Because no matter who became the emperor, they were already at the bottom of the hierarchy. They couldn't escape the fate of being oppressed. And now, Yi Hao gave them hope. It made them afraid that for the first time, they would feel a sense of belonging to their country. They would have the urge to work for the Fire Dragon Empire. And they're the foundation of this country. You are the cornerstone of this country. And now, each and every one of you, other than abusing your own people, what else have you done? After Yi Hao won over the hearts of the people, he turned his gaze to the officials and generals. None of you can escape death for your crimes, Yi Hao said with grief and indignation as he held a thick stack of evidence. Yi Hao handed the evidence of their crimes to a martial king. Read out the evidence of their crimes loudly. Let everyone hear what they have done. Do they really think that they can deceive their superiors and deceive their descendants for the rest of their lives? While the martial king read the evidence, Yi Hao didn't stay idle. He took out a dagger and walked towards the official who wanted to commit treason. He said loudly, "From now on, the beheading for treason is abolished." What? Everyone ignored the fact that the martial king was reading the evidence. When they heard Yi Hao's voice, it was as if they had misheard. Everyone knew that treason was the most serious crime. The young emperor wouldn't be merciful and want to abolish this law, right? Then everything they had done before would be in vain. Even the beheading for treason was abolished. What could be more serious than treason? The group of officials and generals who broke the law looked smug. In their opinion, it was impossible for Yi Hao to kill them. The righteous officials and generals all looked at Yi Hao with a puzzled expression. Some of them even showed dissatisfaction towards Yi Hao. This was because a ruler was too benevolent, even forgiving people who betrayed the country. How long could this kind of empire last? From now on, treason will be punished with death by 1,000 cuts, Yi Hao said softly without waiting for the crowd's reaction. What's death by 1,000 cuts? Is death by 1,000 cuts more serious than beheading? Don't speak. Listen to His Highness. The crowd had never heard of this new term. They looked at Yi Hao curiously. When the treason official heard this term, although he didn't know what it meant, his heart started to tremble. A bad feeling came into his mind. Death by 1,000 cuts requires the use of a sharp weapon to cut off all the flesh of the traitor. 3,000 cuts, 3,000 pieces of flesh. You can't let him die without 3,000 cuts. Yi Hao held the dagger and kept drawing cuts on the traitor official's body. Yi Hao knew that in this chaotic world, if he only gave them some benefits to manage a country, they would only be ungrateful. If he really wanted the country to be strong, he had to use severe punishment. 3,000 cuts is more horrifying than beheading. I'd rather be beheaded than die by 1,000 cuts. Chapter 166. Hearing Yi Hao's words, everyone's attention was drawn to the dagger in Yi Hao's hand. And after Yi Hao explained the meaning of death by 1,000 cuts, no one thought that Yi Hao was merciful anymore. If this kind of punishment appeared, then who would dare to commit treason? Everyone's hearts were filled with panic. As for the officials who had committed the crime, their hearts were filled with fear. They quickly prayed that Yi Hao wasn't telling the truth. Lord, please spare my life. You can't do this. This is not something a benevolent ruler should do. The traitorous official looked at the dagger in front of him and struggled in fear. You tyrant. His pleas for mercy were worthless in Yi Hao's eyes. Yi Hao moved the dagger in his hand slightly. One of the official's eyebrows, together with the skin and flesh, fell to the ground. Blood flowed all over the official's face. The official cursed in pain. Everyone's hearts started to tremble violently. No one expected Yi Hao to do it himself. The officials who had committed the crime were all worried that they would be next. And the officials who were not arrested started to reflect on themselves. They wondered if they had done anything wrong. They had to make up for it when they returned. "Someone, bring me a pot of oil." Yi Hao did not intend to end things just like this. He ordered his subordinates. Soon, a 3-meter wide pot of oil appeared in front of everyone. His benevolent side had already been created, and his cruel side, since he wanted to be cruel, he wanted to be cruel to the end. He wanted to make people fearful. He wanted this official to remember that every time he did something in the future, he had to think about the consequences. He wanted to know if they could bear it. Soon, the pot of oil started to boil under the heat of the raging fire. Just as everyone was guessing what Yi Hao was going to do, Yi Hao made his move again. With a slight movement of the dagger, the official's other eyebrow was picked up and thrown into the pot of oil. The meat entered the pot of oil and was quickly cooked. A meaty aroma wafted out. But everyone who smelled the aroma had the urge to vomit. "Tyrant, you'll die a horrible death." The official watched as his flesh was sliced off piece by piece and thrown into the frying pan. When Xie Chunyu saw this scene, even though she had experienced all kinds of bloody scenes before, she was still unable to hold back and immediately vomited. But in her heart, she had already started to admire Yi Hao. Although Yi Hao's act was extremely cruel, it was enough to leave a deep impression on everyone. As long as Yen Long did not encounter any major crisis, it would be very difficult for anyone to betray him, because this scene would never be forgotten in everyone's mind. It would be a shadow in the hearts of every official in general. It would really be like a sharp sword, whipping every official. Of course, if Yi Hao did this directly, then Yi Hao's image as a tyrant would never be erased. But Yi Hao had given his people a world they yearned for and built up the image of a good ruler. The combination of these two undoubtedly pushed Yi Hao's image to the highest position. He was obviously telling everyone that he could give them the life they wanted, that he could give them all kinds of glory and status. But the prerequisite was that they had to be loyal to him in this country. If they did something wrong, they had to think about the consequences. He was definitely not a soft-hearted ruler. Yi Hao's move was a combination of kindness and power. Every aspect was done to the extreme, and it covered everyone's heart. It did not mean that they would not have a chance to succeed just because they were a commoner. It also did not mean that they could be lawless just because they were a high-ranking official. Once Yi Hao's act was done, it would definitely spread to the ears of everyone in the Fire Dragon Empire. Yi Hao's image would also be deeply ingrained in everyone's mind. As long as they work hard, they would have a good life. Just don't make any mistakes. Yi Hao was the perfect example of an emperor's temperament, but he was also very close to the people. This was the true nature of an emperor. Yi Hao's move would attract countless young commoners to follow him fervently. "I beg you, kill me, kill me." The official's body had been slashed more than 1,000 times. A layer of flesh was floating in the oil pan. Most of it was already giving off a burnt smell. The official no longer scolded Yi Hao. He only prayed for death in his heart. He finally understood what it meant to live a life worse than death. It turned out that there were things in this world that were scarier than death. Every time Yi Hao moved the dagger in his hand, a piece of flesh would be cut off from his body. The pain was unforgettable. He had to watch his flesh fall into the oil pan and be cooked. If he was given another chance, he would never do such heinous things again. It was as if he could see innocent people being killed just because he was unhappy. He even stole other people's wives and killed their entire families. There were even some pregnant women that he didn't let go. In the end, they were all tortured to death by him. These scenes kept appearing in his mind. He only prayed that Yi Hao could give him a painful death so that he could end this torment quickly. If you want to die, wait for 3,000 cuts. The emperor didn't joke. If he said that he wanted 3,000 cuts, then it wouldn't be one more or one less. "You devil, you're a devil." The official looked at Yi Hao in fear. He wanted to bite his tongue and commits suicide. It's not that easy to die. Yi Hao used his hand to pinch open the official's mouth. A golden sword pill was shot into the official's mouth. He said to his subordinate, "Pinch his mouth for me." Many people looked at this scene in fear. They knew how terrifying death by 1,000 cuts was. Even suicide was not allowed. Lunatic, lunatic! Wu Lingxing looked at the official and seemed to see his own end. Gradually, he began to talk incoherently. His mind was also in chaos. He looked at Yi Hao with fear in his eyes. I'm a sinner. I won't die a good death." Wu Lingxing suddenly broke down. He got up from the ground and kept grabbing his hair. General Wu is scared out of his wits. If it were me, I would have broken down long ago. In the future, I will be loyal to the country and work for the people. I will never do anything against my conscience. Seeing that Wu Lingxing was scared out of his wits, everyone looked at him with a complicated expression. It was retribution, but there was also a little pity. He was originally conferred the title of Righteous General. Although he wasn't a great general and was only a 5th-grade general, he still had a promising future. Who knew that he would be so unlucky to run into Yi Hao's gun? Not only did he not kill his son, but he also went crazy. According to Yanlong's law, according to King Wu's sentence, he would be tortured by 1,000 cuts. His family might even be executed. Chapter 167. Just when everyone thought that Wu Lingxing was running toward the pot of oil, they all turned their heads away. They couldn't bear to watch this scene. What a good show. Yi Hao saw the crazed Wu Lingxing from the side. His eyes flashed with murderous intent and unwillingness. This wasn't something that a crazed person should have. Just when everyone let down their guard, Wu Lingxing suddenly took out his dagger and stabbed it toward Yi Hao's chest. "I will kill you to avenge my son." Bang! Yi Hao was prepared. He kicked Wu Lingxing's chest. Only then did the others realize that Wu Lingxing was playing dumb. Guan Yu rushed in front of Yi Hao in an instant. The green dragon crescent blade in his hand chopped towards Wu Lingxing's head. "Traitor, you are courting death. Stop it." At this critical moment, Yi Hao suddenly spoke up to stop her. Doesn't he like to play dumb? Go take out the meat from the pot and feed it to him. You want to kill me, and you want to die so easily? No way. Fatuous ruler, just kill me. I won't eat it even if I die. Wu Lingxing didn't expect his acting to be so realistic. He had fooled everyone except Yi Hao. Otherwise, Yi Hao had been dead by now. When he saw Guan Yu rush out, he felt unusually excited. At least he didn't have to be tortured. He could die. Who knew that Yi Hao would suddenly order Guan Yu to stop? Hearing Yi Hao's words, Wu Lingxing saw a few soldiers run out of the pot of oil and bring the meat in front of him. He couldn't stop vomiting. A few soldiers immediately held Wu Lingxing down so that he couldn't move. One soldier forced his mouth open. Another soldier closed his eyes and stuffed the meat into Wu Lingxing's mouth. Wu Lingxing struggled with all his might, but it was useless. The civilians who were bullied before, and the soldiers who were bullied by Wu Lingxing, were heartbroken. As for the officials, they all turned their heads to the side, not daring to look at him. "Turn your heads around," Yi Hao said sternly as he scanned the officials. They didn't dare to disobey Yi Hao's orders. They could only turn their heads and watch this bloody scene. Yi Hao's voice was like a large bell that struck everyone's hearts. All of you, remember this scene. It doesn't matter if you're an official or not. As long as you're a citizen of the Fire Dragon Empire, you have to think about everything you do in the future. Is what you're doing right or wrong? I, Yanlong, will reward those who make a contribution and punish those who make a mistake. From the common people to the civil and military officials. Do you understand? Yes, Your Highness. This commoner obeys. Everyone, whether they were soldiers, commoners, or civil and military officials, respectfully kneeled on the ground. After Yi Hao finished his words, he continued to dismember the officials. Without Yi Hao's order, no one dared to stand up. All of them respectfully kneeled on the ground and watched this scene. They reminded themselves deeply in their minds not to make any mistakes in the future. Yanlong's laws were not just for show. Millions of people were watching this scene, but the scene was unusually quiet. Only the screams of the officials who were being dismembered and Wu Lengqing's vomiting filled everyone's ears. Of course, there were many spies from other countries among the millions of people. In the end, when they saw the scene before them, everyone's legs instantly turned soft, cutting off his own flesh while he was still alive. They were all wondering how Yi Hao came up with this kind of torture. At this moment, the spies from other countries only wanted to leave as soon as possible. This was simply too terrifying. Staying here for even a moment longer was a kind of torture. But since everyone else was kneeling on the ground, they didn't dare to move. They could only kneel on the ground obediently. Some of the weaker ones were so scared that they even peed their pants. After Yi Hao left, many of the people who had originally wanted to deal with the flame dragon were now intimidated by him. Some weak principalities even showed the intention of surrendering to Yanlong. And even after Yi Hao left, all the officials of the Fire Dragon Empire still conscientiously did their own things. No one dared to act recklessly according to their own power. And those foppish people had all changed their bad habits and became hard-working people. Ding dong, the host's reputation value has increased by 10,000. Ding dong, the host's reputation value has increased by 10,000. At the same time, the reputation value in Yi Hao's mind rose crazily. Yi Hao was overjoyed. He didn't need to do all this. It seemed like these people had really submitted to him. And at the same time that Yi Hao's reputation rose, Yanlong's national luck also rose crazily. He instantly rushed into the top 10 and broke the record again. A country's luck was linked to its citizens. Now that millions of people were willing to submit to the Fire Dragon Empire, the country's luck would naturally rise crazily. And this was just the millions of people present. If this matter spread, then Yanlong's luck would definitely soar again. After 2,999 slashes, the official was still alive. Yi Hao asked, "Do you admit to your crimes?" The official raised his head with difficulty and revealed an expression of relief. With a smile, he said, "I admit to my crimes. Lord, please grant me death." After being slashed 2,999 times, no matter how strong his will was, it would be destroyed. Now, he only wanted to die. How would he dare to resist Yi Hao? If he hadn't let him go and gave him a few more pills and a few more slashes, it's good that you admit to your crimes. Then, this young emperor will grant you death. Yi Hao's expression was unreadable. The dagger in his hand easily slit the official's throat. The official closed his eyes in relief. So, death was so wonderful. Today, this emperor will kill all the guilty officials. Yi Hao took the blood-stained dual blades in his hands and turned to the group of officials who were kneeling on the ground. "Let them go," Yi Hao said softly as he looked at the nearly 100 officials who had committed a capital offense. "All of you, come at me together. If you can defeat me, this young emperor will spare your lives." Since he wanted to establish his authority, it was far from enough to show his ferocity. In the 10,000 Kingdoms continent, everyone worshipped martial strength. He had to show enough martial strength to convince the people. "Lord, you can't." Many officials quickly dissuaded him. Among the nearly 100 officials, there was no lack of people who had been on the battlefield for a long time. Now that Yi Hao had forced them into a dead end, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to call them desperados. "Fatuous Emperor, you asked for it. Brothers, we can only live if we kill this fatuous emperor. Otherwise, we will die. Since you want us to come at you together, can you give us your weapons?" The nearly 100 officials were still afraid of Yi Hao's actions. They looked at the blood-stained dual blades in Yi Hao's hands and asked nervously. Chapter 168. Give it to them. Yi Hao ignored them and said softly as he sat on a chair. He was now a first-level martial king and could kill people above his level. Even a fifth-level martial king was not a problem. In addition, with his blood-stained armor and blood-stained dual sabers, he could use all his strength. Even if it was a peak martial king, Yi Hao believed that he could fight. Most of these officials were only at the level of Wu Ho. Although there were more than 10 martial kings, they were all early-level martial kings. Yi Hao was confident that he could kill all of them. Since he wanted to show off, he would do it to the end. Yi Hao took out nearly 100 spiritual weapons from his space and threw them on the ground. Choose for yourself. If you can defeat me, these spiritual weapons are all yours. Oh my God, so many spiritual weapons. In the 10,000 Kingdoms continent, there was no one who did not know about spiritual weapons. Seeing that Yi Hao did not care and threw out hundreds of spiritual weapons, everyone swallowed their saliva at the same time. Not to mention these people, even the officials were envious when they saw the spiritual weapons on the ground. Although they were from the Marquise country in the past, the Qin Marquise country was a weak Marquise country and did not have any spiritual weapons for them. The good spiritual weapons were all used by the royal family. In a short while, all the spiritual weapons on the ground were snatched up. Spiritual weapons could increase their combat strength. If they could grab a spiritual weapon, they would have a 10% chance of survival. Dog Emperor, go to hell. A third-level minister of Wuhou suddenly attacked Yi Hao from behind while everyone was admiring the spiritual weapons. Be careful, Xie Chunyu shouted worriedly in her heart. Hearing Xie Chunyu's voice, everyone reacted and was worried for Yi Hao. Yi Hao did not even look behind him. As if he had eyes on his back, the blood-stained dual sabers in his hands stabbed back at the critical moment and hit the chest of the person who wanted to sneak attack him. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief and broke out in a cold sweat for Yi Hao. Yi Hao picked up the spiritual weapon on the ground and gently flicked it. The spiritual weapon instantly flew in front of Jiangli. You did well. You've been promoted by 3 ranks. This spiritual weapon is your reward. Jiangli could not believe her ears. She stared blankly at the spiritual weapon in front of her. For me? Very quickly, Jiangli reacted. Under the envy of everyone, he knelt on the ground excitedly. Thank you, Lord. Brothers, let's attack together. Seeing that Yi Hao had killed one of his men so easily, one of the First Order Martial King realm cultivators suddenly shouted. This First Order Martial King had a certain status among the crowd. Hearing his words, everyone started to surround Yi Hao from all directions. 72 Deadly Blades. Yi Hao used a martial skill and quickly used the butterfly shadow step to rush towards the person closest to him. The first strike. Yi Hao's blood-stained dual blades easily cut through a person's body. Before that person could react, he realized that he could no longer move. Oh my God, what a fast speed. What a fast blade technique. Everyone looked at Yi Hao's blurry figure in shock. Like a butterfly king, he shuttled through the crowd and danced gracefully, creating waves of bloody rain. The 12th strike. Every time Yi Hao swung his blade, he would take a life. At the same time, he spoke coldly. Oh, where is he? I can't catch him at all. Many people could only see Yi Hao's figure. They could not catch up with Yi Hao at all. They could only wave their weapons wildly. The 13th strike. The 14th strike. Yi Hao's cold, demon-like voice kept ringing in everyone's ears, driving them crazy. So killing can be so beautiful. Many young girls were overflowing with love. Looking at Yi Hao's handsome figure, they spoke with infatuation and worship. The 36th strike. At this moment, there were already 36 corpses lying on the ground. Among them was the martial king who had spoken at the beginning. His body had been split in half by Yi Hao. Originally, everyone was hoping to wait for Yi Hao to exhaust his stamina before swarming him. Who knew that Yi Hao would become stronger as he fought? They could only blame themselves for not knowing that Yi Hao had renamed the deadly 72 punches as the deadly 72 strikes. It was much stronger than before. Coupled with the butterfly shadow steps, it was even more powerful. Among the 72 strikes, the first strike was the weakest. Each strike was stronger than the last. The last strike could even increase one's combat strength by 10 times. Therefore, it was wishful thinking for them to exhaust Yi Hao's stamina. Brothers, split up and run. Let's exhaust the dog emperor first. Someone suddenly shouted loudly. Everyone felt that it was reasonable and quickly scattered in all directions. The 45th strike. Yi Hao seemed to have lost his consciousness. He had already merged with the blood-stained dual blades in his hands. No matter where people ran, he could quickly catch up and slash them. Could it be that he has become one with the blades? Xie Chunyu thawed in shock. Why? I feel like the blades are alive. They're simply my left and right arms. Yi Hao kept killing people. He was puzzled. He had never felt this way before. The 70th strike. Brothers, let's go. He only has 2 strikes left of the deadly 72 strikes. The remaining martial kings shouted excitedly. Yi Hao had said that every strike of the deadly 72 strikes would take a life. Now, he had already reached the 70th strike. In other words, there were only 2 more strikes left before Yi Hao could no longer hold on. As for them, there were still about 20 people left. Furthermore, they were all the strongest. Otherwise, they would not have been able to survive until the end. 72 strikes. Why do I feel like there are more to come? Yi Hao seemed to have grasped something. He was just 1 step away from being able to grasp it. He felt that the 72nd strike was not the strongest. The move behind it seemed to be even stronger. Every time he used a strike, he would get closer to the next move. However, the closer he got to the next move, Yi Hao was afraid that this feeling would suddenly disappear and he would never be able to grasp the next move again. However, Yi Hao would not give up until he reached the Yellow River. He had clearly killed these people without using any martial arts techniques. However, he still wanted to grasp the next move, the 71st strike. Yi Hao killed another person. However, he did not care at all. He kept searching for the next move in his heart. He was completely unaware that everyone had already surrounded him. The 72nd strike. Yi Hao killed another person. Suddenly, he stopped in his tracks and frowned. What exactly is this move? Why can't I grasp it? Yi Hao stood there motionlessly. This gave the remaining people a fright. However, when they realized that Yi Hao was just standing there in a daze, everyone was overjoyed. They gripped their weapons tightly and charged towards Yi Hao. The 20 people surrounded Yi Hao. They raised their weapons at the same time. If they dropped their weapons, Yi Hao would definitely be chopped into minced meat. Lord, it's dangerous. When everyone saw this scene, their hearts were in their mouths. They did not know why Yi Hao was standing there in a daze at this critical moment. I understand. Chapter 169. So that's how it is. Yi Hao, who had been standing motionlessly in his original spot, suddenly moved his sabers. If one observed carefully, they would discover that Yi Hao's move had the shadow of the previous 72 moves, but there was a huge difference between them. The 20-odd people surrounding Yi Hao did not even have the chance to react before they were all split in half. Our Lord is mighty. Long live our Lord. Seeing Yi Hao's sudden display of might, everyone began to loudly cheer out loud. What strong aptitude. He can actually create a martial technique in the middle of a battle. Xie Qinyu looked deeply at Yi Hao. She could not help but admire Yi Hao's courage. If Yi Hao had been a little later, Yi Hao would have been turned into meat paste. Return to the capital. Yi Hao waved his hand, and the rank 5 spirit artifact carriage appeared. The gilded carriage emitted a dense king's aura. Yi Hao stepped into the carriage, and the purple cry flying horse pulled the carriage. The 8 martial kings immediately chased after him, respectfully sending off my lord. The crowd automatically opened up a path. Hey, wait for me. Xie Chunyu shouted anxiously. Her blood wolf had been locked up by Yi Hao. Without it, her strength would be greatly reduced. She quickly chased after him. I seem to have forgotten something. Yi Hao sat in the carriage. Using a martial technique earlier had exhausted him. Otherwise, he would not have entered the carriage without saying anything. Yi Hao was too tired. He closed his eyes and fell asleep. Xie Chunyu carried a purple umbrella and quickly chased after him. Where are we? Yi Hao woke up and asked as he looked at the starry sky outside. When the 8 martial kings heard Yi Hao's voice, they quickly surrounded him. A few of them looked at each other awkwardly. One of the team leaders said awkwardly, My lord, we seem to be lost. What? What are you doing? Yi Hao immediately sat up. Your Majesty, we have been following your mount all this time. We thought it was your order. How could we dare to stop you? One of the martial kings said, feeling wronged. Yi Hao jumped off the carriage and patted Zi Ming, flying horse's head. You can't even lead the way. I might as well kill you and eat some meat. Suddenly, Yi Hao saw a figure on the carriage. He immediately took out his weapon and asked cautiously, "Who is it?" Woo-woo, Xie Chunyu, who was in the carriage, struggled but was unable to speak. Yi Hao immediately pulled Xie Chunyu down from the car roof. He removed the rope from Xie Chunyu's body and the thing in her mouth. Facing Xie Chunyu's fiery eyes, Yi Hao said speechlessly, "Why are you on top of my car? You still have the nerve to ask this lady? It's all your subordinate's fault." Xie Chunyu had never suffered such grievances. She was a martial spirit realm cultivator, but she suffered such a great loss in a duchy. She was even tied up and thrown on top of a carriage. Yi Hao looked at the martial kings who were looking at each other and asked, "What's going on? Your Majesty, you said that we should return to the capital. This lady has been following us, but her cultivation has been sealed by General Guan. Your Majesty hasn't said what to do with this lady. Men and women shouldn't touch each other. We had no choice but to tie her up." A martial king said embarrassedly, "You followed us, so you can't blame my subordinates. It's good enough that they didn't kill you." Yi Hao spread his hands and said softly, "Besides, why are you following us?" Xie Chunyu didn't think much of Yi Hao's words. Even if her cultivation was sealed, she still had this spirit umbrella. She still didn't put these people in her eyes. Although she couldn't use this spirit umbrella, she still said unwillingly, "We'll talk about it after you kill this lady." "Then why are you tied up?" Yi Hao bluntly attacked Xie Chunyu's arrogance. "That's because, Xie Chunyu touched the purple umbrella on her back, as if she had thought of something sad, and turned her head to the side. Yi Hao looked at the umbrella on Xie Chunyu's back. He was very curious why Xie Chunyu always carried this purple umbrella, as if this umbrella was very important to her. However, when he saw that Xie Chunyu seemed to have thought of something sad, he didn't ask further. "Hey, do you know where this is?" Yi Hao was holding a demonic beast's thigh in his hand. He was roasting it over a raging fire, giving off a fragrant smell. The 8 martial kings stood to the side, vigilantly guarding against any demonic beast's sneak attack. "You actually know how to roast meat." Xie Chunyu looked at Yi Hao curiously, not caring at all about Yi Hao's question. In her eyes, Yi Hao was an emperor. Even if he was the emperor of a duchy, he was still the emperor. Shouldn't emperors be spoiled since they were young? Shouldn't such chores be done by the guards? What's so difficult about this? Yi Hao said proudly. At the same time, he sprinkled all the seasonings that he had exchanged from the system onto the meat. After all, in his previous life, he had gone out for a barbecue with his colleagues. Although he didn't roast it well at first, after all, the demonic beast's meat in this world was incomparable to the pork and mutton in his previous life. However, after a long period of practice, Yi Hao's culinary skills were considered good. Previously, when he was bored, he even specially learned from chefs for a period of time. After all, he couldn't always bring a chef with him when he went out. Yi Hao firmly believed that he could make enough food and clothing with his own hands. "Then, this piece of meat is for you." Yi Hao held a dagger, cut off a piece of meat from the beast's thigh, and handed it to Xie Chunyu. Xie Chunyu looked at the dagger in Yi Hao's hand with disdain. After all, Yi Hao used a dagger to dismember officials. "Don't worry, it's clean," Yi Hao said speechlessly. "You're just a little girl who came out to make a living. Why you care so much?" Xie Chunyu was also hungry. She snatched the barbecue meat from Yi Hao's hand and said, "Seeing that you've worked hard to roast it, I'll give you face and see if it's delicious or not." Xie Chunyu looked at the meat on the dagger. It was glistening with oil, and the aroma made her involuntarily swallow her saliva. She secretly glanced at Yi Hao. When she realized that Yi Hao wasn't looking at her, she immediately took a bite. What a strange taste. The fragrance of the seasonings filled her taste buds. It was something that she had never tried before. Moreover, the meat melted in her mouth. It could be said that Yi Hao's barbecue skills were at the peak of perfection. Xie Chunyu secretly thought. Suddenly, she remembered that that person had also barbecued meat for her in the past. She originally thought that it was the best thing she had ever eaten. She didn't expect to eat barbecued meat that was even better than his barbecue today. "Hey, if you want to eat meat, just eat it. Why are you in a daze?" Yi Hao's voice suddenly rang in her ears, causing her to come back to her senses. Only then did she notice that she had unknowingly finished the large piece of barbecued meat in her hand. Siechunyu's face was a little red as she said, "Can you give me another piece? I'm not full yet." Chapter 170. Eating barbecued meat and drinking beer is a perfect match. Yihao glanced at Siechunyu and immediately exchanged a few bottles of beer with the system. He noticed that a few of his subordinates were looking at the barbecued meat in his hand. "You guys take it and divide it." Yihao smiled and shook his head. A beast leg was nearly a meter long. Yihao cut a piece for Siechunyu and threw the rest of the beast leg to a martial king. The martial kings couldn't believe their ears. They wanted to kneel down and thank him, but Yihao stopped them. "In the future, call me young master outside." Since they had already gone the wrong way, Yihao didn't plan to return to Yanlong. In any case, he had already explained everything. Fortunately, he was heading in the right direction. Gdanzin was also in the west. As for the Fire Dragon Empire, it had the backing of the Fire Emperor dynasty and the evil demon spirit kingdom. It had a loyal minister like Li Hong and a martial saint like Guan Yu. Yihao was very relieved. Fortunately, they should still be in Yanlong's territory. When the time came, he could leave a martial king to inform Guan Yu and the others. They wouldn't have to worry about him. Half a month later, Yihao and the others were heading west. "Young master, I've already asked around. There's a city in front. It seems to be a king-level city." A martial king returned and reported to Yihao. "Then let's speed up and rest in the city." Yihao nodded as he rode on the purple cry flying horse. Yihao was surprised that Siechunyu was riding on the blood wolf. Yihao thought that the blood wolf could only fight. He didn't expect that the fire wolf could be used as a mount. What surprised Yihao was that Siechunyu had been following him all the way. Yihao curiously asked Siechunyu why, but in the end, Siechunyu replied with 2 words, causing him to sweat profusely. "Barbecued meat." This girl would be abducted just for a bite of food. However, Yihao did not stop her. It was a boring journey, and Siechunyu really added a lot of joy to the journey. Why is this city so lively? Along the way, Yihao saw many people running towards the city. Yihao asked in confusion. Noticing the confusion on Yihao's face, the guard quickly explained, "Young master, it's said that the city up ahead has an annual beast appraisal competition." "Beast appraisal competition? What do you mean?" On the other hand, Yihao had never heard of it before. The guard also looked embarrassed. It seemed that he was not clear about it either. To put it nicely, beast appraising is called beast appraising. To put it bluntly, it's called gambling. Siechunyu, who was riding beside Yihao on her fire wolf, brushed her hair that had been messed up by the wind and said disdainfully, "Oh, tell me more about beast appraising." Yihao's interest was piqued. Siechunyu glanced at Yihao and stopped her fire wolf. She kindly advised, "Those things are all lies. If you have that kind of money, why don't you focus on developing your country? Don't waste it on these things." Is beast appraising very difficult? Yihao was even more curious when he saw Siechunyu's exaggerated expression. "It's very difficult. Beast appraising is to identify magical beast eggs. Identify magical beast eggs. In the 10,000 Lands continent, many magical beasts breed by incubating their eggs. These eggs are usually hidden by the magical beasts. Moreover, most magical beasts' eggs are covered in a layer of mucus when they're laid. It's impossible to tell the species of the magical beast's egg. Moreover, 80% of these eggs are dead." Siechunyu explained slowly as she looked at Yihao's curious expression. When Yihao heard this, he was immediately reminded of stone gambling in his past life. Beast appraising was not much different from stone gambling. No wonder Siechunyu said it was gambling. Wasn't stone gambling a gamble? One cut could make a person rich, but at the same time, one cut could also make a person bankrupt. Yihao asked, "We're all martial artists. Why can't we use our mental strength to examine them?" This is the hardest part about gambling eggs. When a magical beast's egg is laid, the layer of mucus on its body can block one's mental strength. Moreover, before the egg hatches, mental strength is the biggest taboo. Once it comes into contact with mental strength, it will immediately turn into a dead egg. Xiachunyu didn't mind Yi Hao's interruption. This should be something that any normal person would think of. Isn't that very difficult? Yi Hao didn't expect a magical beast's egg to be so fragile. If one couldn't even examine it with their mental strength, how could they appraise it? That's why I said it's gambling. Moreover, it's even more impossible to obtain a high-level magical beast from it. This is because the higher the level of the magical beast, the more secretive the egg will be. Moreover, the area will also be more dangerous. It's impossible for a normal person to find it. Moreover, the higher the level of the magical beast, the higher the chances of its egg being dead. Xiachunyu wanted to discourage Yi Hao's curiosity, because in her eyes, gambling eggs were simply a scam. Then why are there still people playing? Yi Hao couldn't understand. Since gambling eggs were so unbearable, why were there still so many people willing to play? Xiachunyu couldn't help but admit that although she didn't think highly of beast appraising, some people had developed it into a profession. Some people devoted their entire lives to appraising beasts. If they could appraise a high-level magical beast, their glory and status would skyrocket. After all, magical beasts were extremely powerful in combat. Who wouldn't want to own a powerful magical beast? However, it was extremely difficult to contract a magical beast like Yi Hao, who had contracted a dragon. Unless one had the help of a powerful person, it would be impossible to contract a magical beast. There were also many people who didn't have any background at all. It was even more impossible for them to ask a powerful person for help. Moreover, magical beasts would rather die than submit. It was simply too difficult to contract a magical beast. Unless one went to a sect that specialized in rearing magical beasts, one could purchase a magical beast young. However, almost no sect would be willing to sell a powerful magical beast young. After all, everyone knew that strength was the most important thing. Even if one was sold, the price wasn't something that ordinary people could afford. Take the Celestial Wolf Kingdom, for example. Although it was a kingdom, it only had a few fourth-level magical beasts. Later on, all of them were killed by the Nangong Wentian. Only the Celestial Wolf King's baby was a fifth-level magical beast. If the Nangong Wentian hadn't fought to the death, the Nangong Wentian might have been killed. However, adding a magical beast was the most direct way to increase one's combat strength. As for equipment, most people simply didn't have enough money to buy it. They could only pin their hopes on gambling eggs. Although gambling eggs were expensive, it paled in comparison to buying equipment. If one could obtain a high-level magical beast, regardless of whether they sold it or used it for their own use, it would undoubtedly be a huge profit. This also made many people think that they could take advantage of the situation. As a result, beast appraising became even crazier. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.